Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 48 of Monstark and Me, brought to you as always by Monstark.com and Hate45.com. I am me.
And I'm Monstark. Sorry,
And
I'm 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 Monstark. Sorry about that one.
and we're trying something a little bit different this time around. We are doing live art. We're doing the episode art by we, of course. I mean Monstark, because if I did it, it would be ridiculous. But live, as we are recording on Twitch, Mark is doing the live episode art. And of course, that is something that kind of happens organically as the episode goes on. So it'll actually be kind of interesting to see how all of this stuff takes shape. So, how did you survive the hottest week probably in Portland history, I imagine?
It was real pain in the ass. I was not myself. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. It was about, in case anybody doesn't know, it was about 116 for a couple of days.
Jesus.
115, 116. And I'm not, everybody likes to do the comparison. Well, it's nothing like so and so or her.
Right,
But like
right.
literally nothing is set up here. Nothing has been built, or the people are. It's like if you lived on the moon, and like if somebody was born on the moon and they came here, uh, people on Earth wouldn't be going, well, you can't take the gravity. Well, I mean here,
Right,
or,
right.
or whatever. Like other people here, I mean, if you're here for a number of years, like you lose. I grew up in Central Valley. I had all this heat tolerance built up from what, it was like a fucking 100 degrees for sometimes a couple of months. It was like floating around that. But yeah, it's just like I don't have any heat tolerance left because I moved out away from there a long time ago, and up here, like people are just it's so unnatural to have it. Like for one, it's in June, which is supposed to be wet sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
and and maybe getting like it's like 70s or something, but um yeah, it was fucking nuts. Like we literally like part roads were buckling, like not that I saw in person, but there were roads that were like buckling. It yeah, so it was, I'll just say, like, personally it was just, but I felt like I was some kind of weird, in some kind of like weird, I don't know, loop of just because I kept going from room to room and like cooling down that room, staying in the room, going into the other room when it's time for bed, cooling down that room for a while. And then I just didn't want to do anything, and the whole thing. If anybody's listened to, last couple of years up here, like I've had a couple rough summers up here, but this was just fucking nuts. So
I mean, I lived in Portland for almost, well, about 15 years. And I mean, there were, over the course, I mean, like, there were summers where it got hot for a couple of days. Um, the worst one I remember is when we were in like an apartment complex, like on the fifth floor, and none of the rooms had any sort of AC, so all the heat just seemed to rise. And I mean, there was like 3 or 4 days that were pretty miserable, but it never, it certainly never got near the temperatures that you're talking about while we were there. I mean, that's just nuts. Like it got maybe like 102, 103. Maybe if it was crazy, 106 might have been like the hottest we ever saw. But like over
uh,
110 in Portland, that's just nuts to me. Because it didn't get even,
insane.
it didn't get that hot here. Um, I want to say the worst I saw was like the Reading area always gets super super hot, and that I think was like only like maybe 3 degrees warmer than it was in Portland, which is insane to me.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, yeah, it was just so unnatural and brutal. I was like scurrying from. I mean, it forced me into malls. That's how bad it was. Like I went to
Yeah.
fucking like I went up to visit my sister for a day. We went into the mall, wandered around. It was great. Then we came down here with my buddy Matt and his kid. Like we went to Lloyd Center, which I'd never been to. It's this gigantic, the gigantic mall. It used to be apparently like the biggest mall in the U.S.
Really?
at one time before the Mall of America. That's what Matt said, and
I
yeah,
never
I
heard
don't know,
that.
but yeah, that's what he said.
Interesting.
Um, but it's gigantic, and it's cavernous. Like it's cavernous because like there's no people in there, which it was beautiful. It was like this like end times, mall. There was people sprinkled around in corners, sitting and stuff, and um, but I was happy to roam around in their AC for a few hours and just chill. It was great. That's my backup plan. Next time it gets really hot, I'm just gonna go there and get like a nice coffee and just hang out and draw.
Lloyd Center,
So
that's not the one that has the ice skating rink, right?
it
That's
is.
the
Yes, it
other.
is.
It is. Okay.
Yes, it's huge.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
it's like half empty of stores and things, and there were just a sprinkling of people in there. It was amazing. I just loved
Wow.
it. Best mall experience ever.
Yeah, there are two malls in Santa Rosa, um, and one of them is like the super quiet mall that nobody ever goes to, and that's always the one that we like to go to if we have to go because it's like a lot chiller. Like malls are just
Yeah.
fucking terrible, man, and
Mhm.
the main one here, it's like every couple of months there's like a stabbing or a shooting or something going on. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Like
Mhm.
people are they're just getting crazy nowadays.
I mean, yeah, yeah. We don't. Anyway, one thing that bothered me about the whole heat thing, or has bothered me, and it still does, is that like we're podcasting, and like my brand is apparently turned into like greasy and like cut off shirt, hair pulled back, which this is not, this is like not the best me. I don't feel my best
No,
like
no,
this.
no. Yeah, I
But
mean,
sometimes you got a greasy podcast
yeah,
once in a
it
while.
happens sometimes. It does happen.
Yeah, but I don't like it.
Yeah,
But
I had like a little minor scare last week. Like 10:30 in the evening, or at night, I guess that would be technically night. On Thursday night, Ford had just been hanging out on my desk for a while, just while I was, watching YouTube or some shit like that. Um, he jumps down and pukes. Is, I mean, it's a thing that happens. Cats tend to do it a lot. Um, and then he did it again, and then again, and then again, and then again, and he just was running all over the
God.
house, puking. He jumped up on the bed, and I didn't witness this, but I saw the aftermath of it. He puked on the bed, and it simultaneously he discovered the phrase coming out of both ends. Um,
And
uh,
then you did.
on our bed. Um,
Oh,
and um, Bianca looked under the bed and found him there, and he was just panting, which is something we'd never
uh,
seen. I've never seen any of our cats do that. Um, so we kind of naturally freaked out. Um, put him in his carrier, took him to a 24-hour vet hospital because again, this is like 10:30 at night. Um, we got there, and they were basically at capacity and had like a 6-hour wait time. But they said what they would bring him in, check his vitals, make sure that he was okay, and then kind of figure it out from there. Um, so they took him in. He was in there for maybe 15, 20 minutes. They came out and said, well, it's good news. The heart rate's normal. Um, doesn't, you know, seem to like there's nothing in the vitals that is startling. So we think he's stable and should be fine. And I called another round, a couple other places. They all seem to have the exact same story. Like every animal hospital was at capacity with like a long wait time. So we left him there, um, and they called us back at around 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus.
yeah, I mean, like he was there for. I think we finally got him. I think it was about 3:30 when I was finally able to pick him up. Um, and apparently, from what it seems, the he just had a massive hairball that he was having problems getting up. Um, and I guess panting is fairly common when a cat is nauseous. Um, it'll just start kind of panting a bit. Um, and so we brought him home and they gave us this hairball in a bag to show us what the culprit was. And this thing was like
Oh,
an inch to an inch and a half thick, and
Jesus.
probably about 3.5 inches long. It was basically about like the size of my thumb. Um, so I
Your
panic
thumb
bought.
is an inch and a half thick.
It's probably like an inch.
Okay.
I
I've got
actually, oddly
petite
enough,
hands, I
I
think.
have a. Okay, my thumb is about. Oh, actually, it's 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Um, yeah,
That's
at
more
the
like it.
at the widest
I
spot,
was
it's
feeling
about an
inadequate
inch.
suddenly. My thumb was not
Yeah, it's about an inch thick. Um, so I panic bought some cat lax and laxatone online at Amazon at 4 o'clock in the morning. Once I got home, um, the good news is since then he
oh
seems fine. Um, but yeah, it's not it was not fun. Basically, I took him to an animal hospital and spent about $125 just so that he could hack up a hairball. Um, but I'm
yeah.
glad that it's frustrating. Um, like just pet ownership is frustrating because it's like obviously you want to know as much as possible about what's going on with your animal, since we have no real way of communicating with our pets.
Not
We
yet.
kind of rely on these people that we pay a lot of money to kind of figure stuff out for us. But it's like you want to be like, yeah, just check absolutely everything. I want to know everything that's going on, but it's like so fucking expensive, like every little thing that
Yeah.
it's like part of me feels like like a somewhat irresponsible pet owner that I don't know every single thing that's happening. Um, but that's also just kind of impossible with animals to really know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how in the hell do people have kids? Like, I go through such
Uh,
anxiety, like in dealing just with my cats. I can't understand how people ever have children.
yeah.
It's like I would never sleep a whole night like again. I think.
Well, I mean, on the upside, like you can eventually, like, you can speak to, be responded to, you
Right.
know, like the kid could
Right.
eventually kind of tell you or point to, something or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, you're right. Like
I guess in the
I can only
grand
imagine.
scheme of
Oh,
things, like you only have to make it through the first 3, maybe 4 years before there's some kind of ability to communicate. And I guess in the grand scheme of
sure.
things, it's not that tremendous an amount of time. But I don't think I could survive those first few years. I'd be like, nope, fuck that.
Just tell me what you need.
Yeah,
Tell me
just
what hurts. I
shaking the
don't know why
baby.
you're
What's
crying.
wrong with you? Why is your head so
um,
wobbly?
I'm gonna or do it like Lone Wolf and Cub style. Like you write different like ailments or something, different parts of the body on different blocks, and put them all
Right.
down on the ground. And like just crawl to the one that applies. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think about this stuff when I was a kid. The stuff I kind of remember that where I was like sick or I know that my parents were worried, and I'm like, how the fuck did they get through that stuff? Like like me having fevers all the time, or I had like ear
Yeah.
infection or whatever. Like, um, it that's a lot of fucking work, a lot of work, and like a lot of worry. And I think this is why, like, I mean, it grows you up really quickly, and it probably ages you to some degree. And when I see people doing that, it makes me feel like even more of a child, you know. And I don't like to, like that term Peter Pan comes to mind, which in a way it's like I've I've had somebody kind of say that like that's what I've got going on is like some sort of Peter Pan thing. And in their case, they were saying it wasn't necessarily like it's a completely negative thing. It was just like, oh, well, I mean, it's that that's actually come up in different ways. Like in one way that you're like kind of like outside of the normal like loop, and in another way, it was like in another case, it was like kind of more of like a negative, oh, you just never had to grow up. But I mean, the fact is, it is a little bit hurtful because, like I had plans. Like I had tried to do all that stuff at one point. I mean, I could have spent like my entire life just like steadily, just like that was my entire, purpose in like trying to get that done. But, it's not like it's not like I never had plans to do it or never tried to do it. It just that's just how life happened. And then now I find myself in a completely different place, and you know I am in my weird little existence that I like. And and it's cool. It's like people accept that, and I've accepted it. It took me some time, but like I accepted this, like, oh, okay, I'm just like doing this weird thing now, and it's fun. So um but you're absolutely right. Like I wonder sometimes like how well I'd be able to handle that, you know um
Yeah, it's
it's
a
like I feel like it's an obsession. It's like this, I'm already like a security minded person and a checker of things.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah.
it's bad enough with cats, man.
Yeah.
When Taman was sick those couple times, he just did the cat thing where he just like gets all frazzled looking and he just
Hmm.
and for like a week straight, I didn't know what to do if something was I didn't know what, and I was completely weirded out, and then it just went away,
Yeah.
and that was stressful enough. So, but I haven't gone to have to go to the emergency room with them yet. That must have
I've
been a
I've had to do that 3 times now. Twice with Ford and once with Zaphod. I'm fairly positive I told the story on here about what Ford did. The like within less than an hour of us bringing him home the first time, um, he I think he tried to jump up onto the dining room table, managed only to pull down the tablecloth. There was a glass on the table that he knocked onto the ground, which broke and managed to cut him like kind of across the nose and under his eye. Um, so less than an hour after we brought him home, I was taking him to a vet for stitches. Um, and so he came back and had 4 stitches. Um, and it was funny for several years. You couldn't even see like the scar at all, but now, kind of as he is grown older, like I think now I can actually kind of make out a scar that he has on his nose. Um,
wow.
Zaphod had urinary crystals, which is apparently much more than male cats. Um, and I didn't realize that problem really because I had a male cat um, since I was probably like 8 or 9, maybe. Um,
Mm.
so I just kind of was unaware of that issue that boy cats can have. Um, and I had to take him uh, to the emergency vet once because he was just having problems using the litter box and was kind of just had no. He seemed to kind of lose control of like when he could just urinate. Um,
Ah.
so they basically had to give him a catheter and kind of flush out a bunch of urinary crystals. Um, so that was fun, and that was and the worst part of that was uh, he had to stay overnight, and we had to drop him off at the emergency vet the night before Bianca was flying home to visit family. So she had to leave on a plane, basically before we were even able to get Zaphod back. So she spent a lot of time kind of worrying about him. But as soon as we got him back the next day, I mean, we put him on new food, which is supposed to be better, and he really hasn't had any issues since. And then the third time was uh, Ford and the magnificent hairball. Um, but yeah, it's not fun, and that's
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
we haven't really had the talk about like returning to the office yet, but it's I think pretty imminent. Um,
Ah,
although
shit.
it may not be full time, um, at least not for a while, because I don't think
What?
my boss really cares that much. Um, but I had to go in last week and move my stuff out of one office and set up it somewhere else because I have to go in this coming week because I have to train somebody, and
Mm.
I'm not really ready to like being able to kind of work from home and be surrounded by my cats for the last year and a half is kind of like
Kind
I've
of
gotten
glorious.
used to just them being around and being able to hang out with me, and there's I mean, like, therapy animals are a real thing. Like, I just feel better. Like, if my cat's hanging out with me all day while I'm working, there's no distraction there, and I just feel better about working. It's just them being around makes it just a lot more tolerable.
That's a good point. It's like they're your support work support animals or something. What? What? Hi.
Speaking of work
Um,
support animals,
Speaking of, yeah, we've got I'm supported from back here. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't think of it that way. I I've enjoyed like I haven't had to go to lady, please. Grippo's just a quick sidebar. Grippo's like I think she's got like she got fixed, but the vet said that sometimes they quote don't get it all,
yeah,
whatever that means exactly. But she acts like she's got some kind of hormonal thing happening, so she's like growing all the meow, like all the weird noises at the window,
yeah,
like all the weird
yeah.
like super needy rubbing on stuff and everything. So I think she has her little time. So that's if she closes anything or steps on something, that's what's happening. But yeah, like I've gotten used to just having not I don't feel like it's for me. Maybe I'm glossing over that part, but I feel like for them, it's like I go,
Oh, yeah,
no, no,
I'm
it's for me
sure.
too. Because
Yeah,
I take breaks and go in, like I take cat breaks all day and go in and like snuggle the cat for a minute and go in
yeah,
and just see how cute they are.
yeah,
It's just like that. Those
yeah.
are my like mini, you know,
I mean,
refilling the tank of.
there is, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. Like, Ford is an emotional mess, I think, just most of the time. Um, he seems to kind of have anxiety issues. He never seems like, I mean, when he's like sleeping and everything, he's fine, but if he's awake, there always seems to be just a little bit of a hint of anxiety about him at any given moment. Um, so I feel like for him, it's probably been, a lot different to have me around all the time, and he's enjoyed that. But I think, for me, it's just like, it's been just nice to have him around all the time while I'm working, and just kind of like literally he will often just sit directly in front of my keyboard, between, like, on my desk in front of my monitors. And there's just something about, like, you know having him there all the time. It's kind of like there's a little bit of a grounding to it, like an emotional
Mm,
grounding, like, you know like, no matter what's going on, like, at least, Ford's right there, and I can, pet him, and it's gonna just like an instant chill pill, essentially. um so there's a part where it's just like, man, I can I bring my cat in every day? Like, I feel like I've been reading like, I've seen all these articles about how the last year and a half has made, like, you know employees are starting to question why they even need to go back.
like,
Like, it seems like,
well,
there's been an 18-month long, like, proof of concept for a lot of people that there's really no need for them to go into offices anymore.
totally.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's just like, well, why? And I think, uh I think there may be some options there, as far as, like, you know okay, so there's no need to go back exactly to how things were. But I understand that maybe people will want us in the office, so let's come to some sort of a compromise. Like,
Yeah.
everybody knows there's no reason for us to be in there 40 hours a week, and in fact, like, a lot of studies have shown that people are less productive when they have to do that. So,
And well, that plus the forcing the 40 hours out of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
I that doesn't. I mean, when that's got to catch up too, because
Yeah.
40 hours with all the time people piss away for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's that saying I like a lot because I think it's like the absolute truth when it comes to working for others, um, or doing work for another on somebody else's like time frame. It's like
Right.
that work will expand to fill the time allotted. Like, yeah, absolutely. If somebody has to be there all day, 8 hours a day, and there's not shit to do, there's not enough to do, you're just gonna
Yeah.
piss away all fucking day, or just like take your time. And
Exactly.
versus, so that doesn't make any sense anymore. It's like, what would it take to kill that? Just like,
Yeah.
a lot of like in-person office stuff has been kind of taken away. I
Yeah.
don't know what it would take to kill that. Maybe, I don't know. Like, it's like it almost should have happened during the worst of the pandemic to
Yeah.
get that kind of rolled in. But I don't know how we could
Well, I mean, I have
force it.
read that they're like, I think companies have supposedly tried to use lessons that they've learned to change certain things, like in the
Hmm.
culture of the offices or whatever. Um, but I think, there are huge corporations that, like, especially like data driven corporations, where they're like,
Hmm.
well, we see what the data is. So, maybe they'll be a company that will try stuff out. But I think the biggest problems is the the majority of people don't work for massive corporations like that. They work for like small businesses that have small business owners
Hmm.
that often look at data and will say like, well, that doesn't really apply to my business model. When in
Right.
reality, it can pretty much work for most business models. It just requires the people at the top to change the way that they do business. And most people are resistant to change. So, trying to get like Joe, small business owner, to completely change like the way that, he looks at what, his business model is, people just don't want to do the work, and they'd much rather,
Right.
you know, have people working on, their terms than their own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just done. Like, I don't, it's not working like a full-time job for years now. Like, I can't imagine I spent all that time at a place like that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that time. The whole cycle of the day was just like everything was just centered around that giant
Mm-hmm.
obligation.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think that that's like being trapped in a place, no matter what you have to do or what's going on, is healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like something got like eventually that's gonna be figured out. Maybe it's like,
I think we're seeing the start of it now because it's uh one thing I've noticed is I think like the generation just kind of like right below us, the slightly younger than us, it's uh they seem to be much more willing than we were at that age to kind of speak up and start asking for things on their own behalf. I just don't think we did that a hell of a lot. I
well,
know I didn't, and I know that I still don't a lot of the times.
yeah, like you were trained well, for one, like everybody was kind of trained to to do that. And the world around everyone for a long time was just like that was the default. Like
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
would say, "What are you talking about? What are you nuts? This is
right,
how business works." You
exactly.
know, um, but
And
I like
people
that.
are, yeah, like people are wising up and kind of realizing that, like, you know, these people are all completely dependent on us, and if we sort of collectively ask for certain things, um, that it's a lot harder for people to say no than if it's just one individual asking for something. Because
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, like, you get a bunch of people working together, like, you can easily get, your CEO over a barrel, because, like, losing employees is a massive loss of production for any company. So, there's power in numbers. And I think, like, uh, people are starting to kind of realize that and say, like, look, none of us really want to, like, go back to the way things were. So collectively, let's make it known that we don't want to do that.
yeah. I you just made me realize that like part of what might have made in the past made me feel like you know people just shouldn't make waves, or maybe like me personally, you just like you're being paid whatever for doing whatever. You're kind of just
Mm-hmm.
like, especially in the jobs where it was like more comfortable and they were like other benefits, and like maybe I could just like kind of coast because it was
Mm-hmm.
I'd been there a while. Um, I think I have a built-in feeling that, again, I apply this to like being an artist too, which I know this is true, that there are, you know, there are like a millions of absolutely amazing artists, and feel like I see more and more all the time. And they're like so many amazing artists that technically I think like are better than me technically, probably like, stylistically, like they have really strong, abilities and everything. And it's just like like a never ending, just like uh cascade of like just art. Every time I look, around, there's always stuff happening and everybody's looks amazing. Um uh, so I feel that that's true. But also I know that I have a built-in thing that where I'm like, oh, well, anybody could do this. This is not really fucking rocket surgery, like anybody could do this. And maybe in a way, not saying that I'm like the smartest, person around or whatever, but uh I think in a way it has something to do with like Dunning Kruger or something, where I'm like um feeling like, well, I'm I'm not that smart. Like I'm not so special that like somebody couldn't just do what I do. Like I naturally assume, well, yeah, everybody else is like, yeah, you're capable too. You could do it too. It's just that like I've spent more time focusing on this or that thing. Maybe it's
Right.
not true. I don't know. I don't know how much of that's true, but I feel like I have felt personally like, especially in jobs where I'm just like getting paid for stuff I don't love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, any person could do this. I'm just like sort of playing this role just to like be in this job, and my real thing is over there. So like the art thing is like my actual talent. This is just like me doing a job.
Right.
So it makes you feel like maybe it's just the way I think about it, because I feel like I felt
Well,
like I
you
was
don't
just
invest
filling
so
in.
much of it. I mean, and that's sort of the genesis of this podcast, is like, you
Me not
identify.
investing.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, no, that you don't attach any of your self-worth to, an
Oh,
occupation. Like, you don't
yeah.
attach any of that outside of, like, what your actual passions are. Like, what what it is that you do that kind of makes you feel, good about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, that was kind of the uh, the early like iteration of the podcast and everything was kind of a lot to do about that, like identifying the things that you do that you know make you feel good about yourself. And I think that I mean that's I think I can understand what you're saying as far as like not making waves, because you can look at something that's bothering you at work or something, and you basically say, well, I can either speak up about this and try to you know help change this thing that I don't like, but you're also like, but why do I want to invest that much more energy into this thing that I really am not all that passionate about anyway, or really that I don't care that
Yeah.
much about anyway.
Well, oh, that's a definitely a big, yeah, big part. I think for a lot of, I mean, was for
And that's
me
and
was
I've
like,
had that same kind of philosophy on stuff, is like, I can like, yeah, there are a million and one things that like, you know, I could try to change, but I also am a little bit like fatalistic about it, where it's like, I don't necessarily want to rock this boat because I don't want to draw any more attention to myself than like I absolutely have to. It's like I don't want to be on
yeah,
anybody's radar. You know what I mean? And so I tend to like not take on those challenges because
right.
I'm happy just kind of, like you said, kind of coasting. It's like I don't want to invite all of this like additional responsibility or uh drama into something that I'm just trying to, get through anyway, so that I can return to, an actual life with, uh, real stakes and, you know, real things that I care about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a big part. I think I also just solidified like or condensed down what I was trying to explain into I uh in a job, I feel like anyone can do this job. So like the whole the talk about like, well, you're important as a worker, you're special, and
Mm-hmm.
I always have just felt like anyone can do this job, which is why I think that's why like I wouldn't invest in it like that. I wouldn't make it my
Right.
identity because I always felt like anybody can do this. The thing that I can do that a lot of people haven't, you know, made it a practice is creative work,
Yeah.
and that's what makes me,
Right. Because even in
that's my thing,
creative, even in creative occupations, um, it's not as if every creative occupation has a lot of creativity in it. Like
right?
they
That's
may,
like a
you know,
fucking trap of
yeah, it's
for
like,
well, I was lucky because I just realized everybody gets to see me erase things once in a while because I don't like them. I'm not sure how I feel about that
I
because
liked
it
the
happens
fish.
here. It happened. I know I got to do better. Um. Anyway, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're making a good point. You're not making me feel like I want to go work full time again, though. That's for dang sure.
Well,
Not that
I don't think
I
anybody
mean,
really loves that idea. I don't. I don't think anybody. I mean, there are very few people in the world. Like I'm actually kind of legitimately jealous sometimes of Trisha and what she gets to do for a living. Managing a comic book shop, because like she seems to have figured out really early on, because she's 10 years younger than I am. Like I think that she realized fairly early that uh, while she may have had, you know, while this is maybe not the path that she could have imagined like her life going in, um,
Uh,
she kind of realizes like, well, I actually really enjoy um, my job. Like,
yeah,
I like doing what I do, and I'm not going to get rich doing it. But I think she learned quickly that just the value of that um, is worth hanging on to. Um,
yeah,
and like, you know, I I wish that I had kind of learned that a lot, younger, and I
yeah.
probably would have, saved myself a little bit of a nightmare in
Yes.
putting,
What's funny?
yeah, go ahead. I ran out of steam.
What's What's funny though? Like we've talked about both extremes.
Yeah,
Now, like we talked about, well, probably it might have been a good plan to just like power through 10 years of like this crap that I absolutely hated, and make a shit ton of money and just get out.
right.
But you're talking about like like the other end of that sort of planning, which is also really awesome and sustainable. It's actually more sustainable in a, life sense. So that kind of, that speaks to me more, like keeping it simple and small
Yeah, I
and not
mean,
aspiring to like huge,
one
you
of
know.
my closest friends from college, I think one of his very first jobs, if not the first job that he had out of college, was working at Voodoo Donuts in Portland. And this is when Voodoo Donut didn't even have a real storefront. Like they literally had a window. It was like imagine a McDonald's, but the only part of the actual store is the drive-up window. Like that was essentially what it was. Like there was no store for people to come into. They just walked up to a window in downtown Portland, and there were people just like frying up donuts and giving them to people. This was in the days when they were getting fined by the FDA um, for putting Pepto Bismol and NyQuil on donuts. Like their idea was they were serving a clientele that was, they opened at like midnight. It's like they were serving people that were like coming out of the bars. Um,
Mm.
and, they thought it was like, not feeling that great after your night out. Like we have a donut that has a Pepto glaze on it, or are you have you maybe had some accelerants in your system to make it through the evening? Well, we have one with NyQuil that'll help you like go home and go to bed. Um, so I mean, this was like when before Voodoo Donut became like the juggernaut that it is now,
Mhm.
and kind of become synonymous with Portland. And as far as I know, like that's he's still doing that uh, close to 20 years later. Like he's now I think one of the store managers of one of the locations, and it's like he found something that he enjoys doing and he's stuck with it. Like more power to him. Like I think the idea that like you know we need to live up to you know some perception of an ideal that we're all supposed to be striving to um,
Right. Like you need to get a
is
real,
right. Like what the fuck does
like,
that? Like everybody's like, yeah, but
right,
you're gonna get a real job eventually, right? It's like, oh, I'm working
right.
at a music store now. It's like, yeah, but that's why you're looking for a real job, right? It's like, I mean, yeah, I like
Like what is
I think
I
that means like, a job that'll allow you to afford all of the shit that we're all supposed to want out of life, i.e., house, kids, all those kind of
right.
things.
How are you gonna,
Um,
yeah, how are you gonna buy a house and put your kids through college, or
right, exactly.
choose your, or buy all your
And
toys or whatever?
yeah. Um, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, not everybody needs to do all that or cares to.
Absolutely not. It,
Um,
it there's
sorry.
power,
Yeah,
power. No, sorry. There's power in that for sure. But you have to want, you have to like self kind of propel toward like things, or you have to be interested in things that are just more uh sustainable, you know, maybe
right.
smaller.
Yeah, exactly. I
Um,
mean, it's
uh,
like
I,
not
I
everybody, we have to look around in our everyday existence. Not everybody gets all of the things that they like. Not everybody has the six-figure salary. They're still adults working, at gas stations and shit. And it's like,
right.
that's a totally legitimate and fine existence
Yep.
for a lot of people.
Totally. I have a buddy here in town, and amazing. He's amazing at what he does. He builds amazing things, and he, he's always saying stuff like, "Well, as long as I keep all the bill collectors at bay, or whatever version of that, it, as long as the bank account is like not, it's
Hmm.
just there. It's not like he doesn't have to worry so much about day to day stuff. Like that's like winning, to him, is like I can sustain all whatever I have, and it's just and do what I love, and it's smaller than a lot of people would want it to be, but he's not stressed about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a
That's worth
quote
so much
unquote
more than
real job, and like I'm still stressed as fuck pretty regularly. It's
right,
like it's not as if having a quote unquote real job is the answer to all of life's like problems. Like I
right.
think that's one of the things that also is people don't realize and we're not told is that like yeah, this you know ideal life path that parents lay out for their children of like you go to school, you go to high school, you get into a good college. After you go to a good college, you get a good job. Like the end of that story, the implication, at least the implied ending of that story, is always and then everything will be fine.
Then you win.
And right, yeah, and it's
Then you just
like
get to coast on until you exit the
right,
planet.
right, and it's like yeah, that's not the case. You like uh it like everything has to kind of be perfect. And also you know the generations before us were a lot better looked after as far as like you know retirement and all that kind of stuff. Like that has become basically worse and worse as the generations go
Well,
on.
th- yeah, I mean, this is in part why I have like, I'm almost like, I'm not, I wouldn't say anti-work, but I'm like, because honestly, like, yeah, when I do what I do, like I bust my ass. I put in probably more time than is needed, that
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But um, it, but just like the concept of like you have to, put in, basically not even anything to do with effort or reward. It's just the fact that it is it
It's
looms so large and it's so important to over everything else, that you're stressed out, you're sick, you're like you're going
which is the
going at you
concept,
like
like the concept that you bring a new life into the world and it's like here is all of this untapped
here's your
potential.
lunchbox.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's like you know it is a it is an it is an unchanged like regimen of basically every single creature that enters this world. There is a similar path that basically every single one of those people take, which is a weird concept. It's like every new life, let's the first couple of years they're gonna scream and poop on themselves for a while, and then as soon as they stop screaming and pooping on themselves, then we send them to schools for about a dozen years, and then after those first 12 years, then they may go to more school, and then we just send them, into the minds of like, the economic system to,
Hmm.
keep making money for us.
Well,
Um,
and you could be said that the schooling part of it is kind of set up
right. To to to
to get you acclimated to like falling into a hierarchy and
right.
all that. Like I would believe that for a long time. Seems like it's kind of an innate thought now, you know? But and again, like this like I like that people probably would hear this and go, oh well, yeah, duh, dude, like this is like I knew this when I was 13 or something. Um,
Well, that's kind of the
but
point
it's a
is
different
that
world now too.
yeah, it's exactly. I mean, like it seems like a lot of the kind of established norms, like I don't feel like in my lifetime I've seen as many people publicly acknowledging like how just kind of how little sense all of this stuff makes. Um I feel like that was, kind of one of the things that like we sort of like bonded over a little bit, is that like we tend to think
Yeah,
about things that a lot of people just sort of take for granted. And I feel like, like the younger generation is kind of catching on to that and being like, just wait, why? Because maybe, you know, they're like the kids of our generation. And so it's like, people of our age that are kind of like, this doesn't come to think of it, doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Like their kids are now like, just, well, let's change it in some way. Let's, like the idea that people can become content creators. I think initially that was something that people kind of looked at and being like, oh, you make YouTube videos for a living? Like, right, But now there are so many people out there that can find a way to, not necessarily become like huge content creators, but find a way to like just support themselves enough so that they can pay rent and bills by doing stuff like that there's this whole
yeah,
new like job market out there that just didn't exist before, where people can find a way. They're kind of like hacking the system. They're taking the tools out there that these corporations have created and then using those tools to find a way to like support their own livelihoods. And yes, they're still
yeah,
making money for the giant corporations from ad sales and stuff like that. But, you know, they can do what they want and set their own hours and stuff. And it's not exactly easy to become successful doing it, but, it's like you apply the discipline to it as if you would any other job, and eventually, like it'll start to catch on a bit.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's doable, and at the same time, um, it's like the new version of making it. Like, how am I gonna make
Right.
it?
Right. Right.
And everybody wants to do it. Everybody's doing their little mini versions of it.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people have the dream of like making it. Um,
But I think like
But
I think maybe making it is like starting to take on maybe a bit of a new connotation. Like I think we thought of it as like, how am I gonna like, become rich and famous? I think if you look at that as if you define like what making it is as being able to live on your own terms, then that's like a really healthy way of looking at that same thing. That of like
uh,
a healthy goal
well,
of like, I don't want fame and fortune.
yeah.
I just want to be able to live my life on my own terms. And that's like
I
I think a
mean,
lot healthier.
yeah. I mean, it could be said that like once you manage, whatever expectations you have,
Mhm.
like you can be a success in like you know the way that you want. Like if it's very simple, you know, if it's kind of a smaller lifestyle, then it's totally attainable. Like if that's the dream, for me, that
Mhm.
kind of I apart from any other wild stuff I've got, like that was always the baseline, just like simple. I don't need a whole lot, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like I still think of like it's the fame thing, I
Mhm.
guess. I feel like a lot of people are really getting the sense that it's just beyond like the
Right.
reach of their fingertips. And if they can just like hit the thing or whatever, then they can get it. Um, because they're, it's like these days, it's especially these days, it's easy to just like see a thing and go, oh, well, shit, I could do that. Or just like, oh, shit,
Mhm.
they did it that first and they're, um, or they did some dumb thing that was kind of dumb and simple, but everybody loved it. I can do that.
Yeah, the first person on Twitch to decide to broadcast from a hot tub. It's like I could have
Or
done
what?
that.
Kiddie pool?
It's like yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like uh yeah, I mean that would be like that's one of those things where uh I showed you that link to that like virtual Twitch streamer, the Code Miko. Like
Hmm.
I find that such a fascinating example because it's like uh it's so like that kind of content creation world seems to be so arbitrary for the most part about what catches on and what doesn't. Because there are thousands of people that do the exact same thing and probably do it at like the same level. Um, and what kind of catches on and takes off always seems to just kind of be this arbitrary thing. But the person who created Code Miko was like set such an incredible challenge for herself by saying like, yeah, I want to do this, but I wanted like I want it to be all virtual and I want it to be like to spend a ton of time like coding this crazy universe and doing it all with a motion capture suit. Like it's shredded like made it so challenging and then wound up being wildly successful. But I think that that's always uh I like that she kind of like put the whole thing on its head because she in a way becomes like a critic of that entire uh kind of like streamer culture, um,
Uh,
because she's
like,
created
like,
like this completely different character.
right. It's like this is what's possible if you put in tons of work
Exactly.
and not just, you're not strictly just personality.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
like it's always interesting for people that are like they're using the tools that are out there that are kind of targeted for one thing and saying like, well, technically, I can stream anything that I create. And so the idea that like yeah, 99.9% of the people that are out there are going to stream themselves in front of a webcam, even either playing a video game or like reacting to YouTube, comments or
Oh,
something like that. Or
Jesus.
it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm going to create like an entire virtual reality and then broadcast that. Like,
Yeah.
it just it's cool to see like, you know, what people are capable of creating if they dedicate the time to it,
Totally.
and take the the risk to do it. Um,
Yeah. I have a
I
lot of
just think
respect for
it's
that.
yeah, and
It's
and
not
then
the
they
easy path.
yeah, and they can become like hugely successful in their own right. And the one thing that I do like about the fact that that is kind of like almost this whole new you know uh, whole new like sector of jobs that people can have is that it makes people, I feel like it's encouraging like younger people to take a more serious look at some of like their aspirations than we ever did, because we're sort of like taught growing up that like if you want to become if you want to have one of those like glamorous jobs like artist, musician, movie star, or whatever, like that kids aspire to when they're young, it's like we're always taught that that's not a realistic thing. But in our generation there was no way for somebody to kind of like break out on their own without the support of traditional like mainstream media or whatever. There was no social media, there
Well,
was no YouTube or Vine or Instagram where we weren't able to showcase ourselves at all, without some sort of support.
you had there were gatekeepers that you had to go beg
Exactly.
for.
Right.
You had to go see if you were good enough to get
Mm-hmm.
into, to their little
Right.
world. And that's the part that like kind of it kind of turned me off. And I think in some ways that's why I never like went after like industry work really, or I just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like driven to do that kind of stuff. Um, and like like not making that a focus. I know that that's kind of like I it kind of has kept me like in my own kind of weird little like indie thing. And I've seen others, other people I know and lots of others kind of just take different things and like get really interested in kind of just playing ball with entities like that. And um but I always loathed the thought that like somebody would, be telling me whether or not it's good enough. And I know part of it's like, well, you got to know you got to know what we're selling here. So,
Right.
somebody is like the expert, and they somebody knows this. Like, I don't
Right.
necessarily as the
Right.
artist know, but I just kind of didn't like the thought like, okay, well, somebody's gonna come around and like revise shit, and like we're gonna. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe eventually, like allowing for more of that stuff, like that'll help me like grow in a different way. And where I mean, I do have designs and doing more collaboration, but kind of in my own under my own power, really.
Right. Right.
And and this is why I'm like starting to like do all this crazy planning for this new thing, because I'm like, that's that's a new thing that no one can tell me. And I think this is why I'm doing it, because it's like because no one can tell me what to do, and no one can tell me that it's too whatever, or they don't understand it. So it's got to, that's kind of the whole point. Like, I have the freedom, like actually being able to live and feed myself, you know, uh, doing other things. I have the freedom right now to do that, so I'm going to do it. And
Well, it's like it's
That's a valuable
basically
thing to me
good
right now.
because like as long as you continue to do that and continue to make plans, you continue to create and make those things that enable you to continue to live that sort of self-sustained life. If you kind of stop making the plans and stop doing that, you may wind up finding yourself at a point where you aren't able to do that as much. And like, so you want to keep going and keep creating momentum, so that you can move on to the
Yeah.
next thing and the next thing. Because if you stop, you know, you can find yourself like having to accept more things that you wouldn't do out of sheer necessity. And then you're eliminating the time that you know, would have potentially had to pursue your own stuff because you have to now
Yeah.
spend that time. It's basically like the biggest asset is time because everything
Yes.
that you do requires that time. And
Yeah.
like, you know, doing something else with your own time is, you know, I think cuz I think that that's like, you know, when you are when you do kind of like, you know, make art for a living and something like that, you know, it's not like it's, you know, a okay, you know, well from this time to this time that's when I'm at work and then this time is my own time. Like when you're an artist, essentially all of your time is your own time, and it becomes like that much more like
Or at least most of
necessary
it.
to manage it. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on how you put it together. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that it's the best way to do anything, but um, it's important to me. And I, like I'm thinking of the ways that like that could be taken because I love that. Like honestly, I want all of my creative friends. I want all of them in charge of everything that's going to reach huge masses of people. Like these people should
Hmm.
be in charge of that stuff because they're amazing. And so I want that, but it's just that I won't necessarily want that for myself.
Right.
even
Right.
that, even if that means like, you know, like my little footprint is like it's not attached to, I'm like attached to some behemoth, so I'm not like, able to like ride along with that and kind of. So I don't know. Um,
Well, I think,
I
you know,
mean,
it's like, yeah, obviously you don't take on jobs that you have zero interest in. You know, so I
I mean,
understand, but
I
it's like you're talking about how that could potentially be perceived. It's like it's that, you know, there are obviously like everybody has, you know, like people who do a lot of freelance work. Um, a lot of them are they're able to take jobs that they're legitimately interested in and will enjoy doing, but they also have their own creative passions that they want to pursue. And you know, that's kind of all I'm saying is like, uh, you know, you have your own plans for things that you want to do, and being able to make
yeah,
sure you have the time for that is important.
yeah, yeah. And this is going to be my weekly, or like per episode statement of, yeah, everybody, I'm working on a thing, working on stuff, and I'm not going to talk about it
Right.
because just because it's something like it's kind of all I want to do right now, but it's you know sort of research and development, and it's not even this is it's not it's just something that's like I have to do. Like you've heard if you've listened before in the last few episodes, like I just have to because it was almost like it was dropped on my head from the by the universe when I was not suspecting. So I have to go through with it and just see what I can do with it, even though it might just be weird or people won't even understand it or like people will think it's dumb or whatever. It's fine. Um, So there we go. Here's my
That's
weekly update.
your weekly PSA.
Mm-hmm. Weekly
Still doing
PSA. I
it,
can't.
still not telling you about it.
I'm still got notes and I probably shouldn't eaten taffy when I was on the podcast, but um anyway, yeah, yeah. But
um we've talked about this but never actually done it. So I want to try while we're doing one experiment, why not try another one? Um we've talked a couple of times about like just going on to the subreddit called Ask Reddit, and just finding some interesting questions, because it's a place on Reddit where there are a lot of, I guess, kind of almost pseudo esoteric questions that people ask. Um,
we
so, Mark, if you're willing to indulge me, um,
absolutely.
I like these because they are fairly deep questions, but because it's like a Reddit um, subreddit, there are a bunch of them. So it kind of I guess what we would consider a speed round is maybe like, you know,
Yeah.
20 minutes on one question as opposed to like, 3.5 hours. Um,
uh,
uh, this is a question I don't think I've ever asked you, but what do you suck at?
um,
Because I can, while you ponder, I had an immediate, I immediately kind of know what I'm really bad at, and I've addressed it before, which is kind of like self discipline, self motivation, um, basically like self self like sticking up for myself, or not necessarily sticking up for myself, but more specifically going to bat for myself.
mm,
Um, I really suck at that. Um, and for me, it's like self discipline, and because I know a lot of things that I should be doing differently. I know a lot of things that would make my life better or easier. But implementing those changes, and having the discipline to kind of institute a new set of, not rules but guidelines for myself to uh, be better at certain things. And I've talked about that fairly extensively on this podcast, so I don't think I need to go into a bunch of detail. But I don't know if I've ever asked you that question. It's sort of like, what do you think that like you're really like bad at?
um, I I think I'm well, these are the things, and maybe again, it's like you maybe telling yourself you should be better at certain things, so you kind of claim those as like your, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
you. I don't know if that's the case, but in my case, I think that's it. It's like I feel like I should be better at certain things. For example, um, being good with time, like being on time, for example, to things, and staying connected like on a regular basis, like
Mm-hmm.
with people. Because I this is a thing, like it's been with me forever. Like I'm constantly apologizing to people for like it's like all like upfront apologize, like, oh, man, it's like I'm terrible at whatever. It's my fault that we haven't talked in a while, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because and maybe that's just me putting it on myself. Maybe it's just the way that I am, and people like that understand that kind of just go, yeah, that part's annoying, but besides that, I like you, I that kind of thing. And thankfully, that seems to be the case.
Yeah,
So, like
I
the
mean,
people in my life understand this.
I like, I don't know if I think I've told you this story, but that was the entire reason that I did my very first podcast was because there were friends who I was starting to fall out of touch with and
Mm-hmm.
not talk to enough. And, creating this sort of like artificial reason to hang out regularly was a way to kind of like reestablish those relationships. And it's almost like creating a structure around your friendship. It's like in some really weird way.
Yeah.
But it's like the idea of but just scheduling a time to hang out and chat, um, without some sort of a structure. It's a lot easier for people to be like, dude, I'm not really feeling it, or I think I'm gonna, bow out this week. It kind of created an environment where it's just like, well, we're setting aside this time every week, and just shooting the shit. Because yeah, that was something that I definitely felt a lot like, you know, 15 years ago, something like that, of just like, you know, really bad at we talked about like how people, we talked when we were talking about like, somebody randomly knocking on your front door and you're just like, what are you doing? This is my time. Like, why are you taking my time away from me?
Uh-huh.
We just weren't scheduling enough time for other people. Um, so here's another one. In your opinion, what is the saddest truth about life? That's a tough one. In
I,
my
I find a I find a lot of things sad about life, but
yeah,
mainly for
um,
for others.
I immediately think of like what we just talked about earlier. Is like, you know, uh, no matter who you are or how special you are or where you're born, there's a incredibly uh, there's and it's your life is in many ways almost pre-written. Obviously, there are things that will make you unique and different, um, but the path of your life is probably going to be incredibly predictable. Um, and there will be
Mhm.
things about it that make you unique and different, but it's very likely going to uh, follow a very predetermined formula, just because everybody's life does. Um,
Mhm.
there are very few people that kind of live uh, a like truly strange or unique life, and we often call those people like weirdos. When uh, just simply because our society has a very strict set of rules, and everybody just kind of falls into their own role. Um, you know, the other sad fact is it eventually ends. Um, but I don't know. That was my initial thought on reading that one.
Yeah, I can I kind of go with that one too a little bit, but uh I, I mean we're talking about life as applies to well
I mean, that's like
I
literally
just I think a
anything.
lot of things are sad. A lot of things make me sad about the world, the way, and it's sad for people. It's not like sad that like oh life my life sucks or whatever. It's not like that
Right.
at all. Like I think about how well we've talked about actually this is a thing we've hit on a lot where how things are different just by the fact that you're spawned into a certain body in a certain place, and like the people that
Right, right,
are for example, like myself, like spawned in a different body, different place, wouldn't be able to express myself the way that I you know
right.
am, or
That so much of
I,
it
I you know what
it's predetermined in a different way. That just your random circumstance will have such a profound effect on your life. And chances are there's very little that you can do to legitimately change that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
yeah, kind of that, yes. I mean, that's part of it, but also the what's also sad is when people have choices and they kind of don't know how to be free,
Mm,
or they are, well, this goes along with like the tradition thing, or
right,
just the learned everything, that that makes people less free unless they have to break out of that stuff, out of all the learned things that wormed in there when they were tiny. And and that's, I guess that's one of the most sad things for me. Like when people are kind of saddled with things, and so they become a completely different person than maybe they would have with another, positive
right,
influence.
right.
And
That's a good one.
it
I like
it's
that.
like a weight, and I don't know, I don't know how to say that in a statement, but or in a sentence, but yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
Basically, the gist of it.
I found a really interesting one that um, this is kind of a funny one. You die and get sent to hell, but Satan shakes your hand and says, "I'm glad I finally got to meet you. What did you do?" And so this is like, what could you do in life that would elicit that sort of a response from Satan? And one of the answers was, I created mobile ads with a transparent close button. I invented microtransactions in video games. I didn't forward that email I received in 2008 saying that if I didn't do it, I would go to hell. Um, I think there's finding some other good ones. Uh, I beat Tenacious D in a rock off. um,
um, do you have an answer for that? Since you've
uh,
seen it already, so
I'm trying to think of one. Um,
heaven doesn't want me, and hell's afraid I'll take over.
yeah. I was gonna say I did free telephone solicitations for Donald Trump or something like that. I finished
Oh
ice
boy.
cream and then left the empty container in the fridge.
Oof. On that level can get so you're saying you're guilty of at least a couple of those things?
Um,
That kind of came out of your mouth pretty easily about the ice cream.
God, for me in that case, if I had to think of something like that, it would be oof. I mean, I feel like for me, it would be it would have something to do with Bianca and I trying to figure out dinner plans. Because, like I've said before, like that is the most like difficult thing I feel like I have to do nowadays.
Huh.
Is and again, something that would be considerably easier with actual planning and forethought.
For sure.
But that is
It
not
is
being one
pretty
of my
easy with
strong suits.
huh.
Um,
You like
so
to, like, you just say you live in the moment, because that's, you know, as
well,
people say these
yeah, but
days.
it's such a
I'm living in the
huge
moment.
yeah, but that is so much more difficult because those decisions are so hard to make in the moment. Um,
Oh, some of the worst times I've ever had doing that, like say after a convention show.
mm,
Hey, you guys want to go get something to eat?
right, right.
And I just had to learn like, don't even just do it. Just figure it out. I can't do it when I'm hungry and like I'm tired. I can't. This is
Yeah,
why
I
I
think a
plan in
good
advance.
answer to
Just
that question, a good funny answer to that question would be I drank orange juice right after brushing my teeth and I enjoyed it. And that is not a true answer in
all
my
right.
case, but I feel like if you're the type of person that enjoys that, then Satan would definitely want to meet you
That
when you
that makes
finally
sense.
inevitably arrive in hell.
That makes sense.
I made the
I think I
mistake
kind of
once.
have.
I made the mistake once of getting. I don't know if it's still there, but there's this diner on Southeast Hawthorne. Um, it's called the Cup and Saucer,
Mhm.
and they had a really good kind of egg scramble there that they called the Hell's Huevos, and it was basically like scrambled eggs with jalapenos and cream cheese, and it was really good.
Mhm.
Um, but I went there with a friend and I ordered that and I got a cup of coffee, and I
Mhm.
had never before had coffee and something spicy at the same time, and it was one of
Oh.
the. I mean, that was like a. It was very similar to a orange juice after brushing your teeth type experience.
Mhm.
Which apart from the orange juice and toothpaste, I haven't encountered that many like flavor combinations in my life that are so immediately horribly off-putting.
Mhm.
But spicy stuff and coffee is, I think, definitely a close second. A close second
It's
to
you
orange
know I
breath, orange
that
brush.
you can just shorten it. I know that that's one that I actually do know about because I've done that plenty of times. Spicy stuff with coffee.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a little fascinated by how tastes combine to taste like things that aren't food. And I mean, I have a sort of an extreme example of this, but like I know you could probably think of examples like, well, oh my God, this tastes just like dirt, or this tastes like,
Oh.
something other than like food or even organic matter sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think of other examples because the one that I have is, well, I'm trying to figure out how to put it delicately. Um,
So say you're eating ass, right?
this it kind of the opposite. Let's
Ah,
and let's just say
I'm hearing
there's
screaming on
explosions
your
going on
end.
us. Yeah,
Okay.
screaming and explosions are outside. Everything's okay, everybody. It's just it's the it's the 4th of July today.
Yeah.
Things are
This is one of the reasons
um
I'm podcasting today, so that I can try to take my mind off of being worried about if some dumb fuck is going to burn down the fucking state tonight.
mhm, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
I'm sure it'll be great. Um yeah, yeah, anyway. That I tasted I'll tell you what I tasted and then maybe you probably can't put it together, but I had a you know what a samosa is?
That's
It's
champagne
like a
and
little
orange juice?
that's a mimosa.
Oh. Oh, samosa, the Indian food?
Yes, the little like it looks
Yeah.
like a dumpling or triangular thing. Super good, like fried, kind of like potato-y, like spicy stuff. Those are amazing. Anyway, so I tried one of those. I can't remember whether or not it had like some of the like chutney stuff with it because you can like put like this fruit chutney. I think I just had that, and I was drinking a lime sort of some kind of like lime flavored like snappily kind of
Mm-hmm.
drink, and it tasted in the moment. It tasted exactly like I'll just say it tasted just like an ex-partner.
That's wild.
It was amazing. Like I was like, I never knew this could like, it didn't make any sense to me. Some smells do that a lot too. Smells are really
Yeah,
weird that way. But like that was like the most extreme example I'd
there's certain people in my life who have a very
encountered.
distinct smell associated with them. Like there was this there was a friend I had in college who always smelled like cigarettes and some like weird like vanilla uh like kind of perfume spray that was just like some like cheap store bought stuff. And it was like, to
Yeah.
this day, if I ever smell that like vanilla, it's like
Yeah.
there's only one person who I associate that with.
Well, that's hilarious. It's like I don't know who invented or why they invented vanilla bathroom spray.
Right.
It's not good for anybody. Like
It's like the
we
Dave
need to
Attell bit, it's like we know you did something like bad in there. Like now it just smells like shitty flowers.
Yeah, but I mean vanilla, come on, man.
Yeah, that's
Come
a
on, give me a
really
break. Like I
silly
fucking
one.
bake cookies with that stuff. Like vanilla is wonderful flavor.
Yeah,
Don't attach it to because
to doing something
you start
bad.
attaching it to that enough, and it's gonna like you're just gonna get put off of that.
That's a
It's like
very good point. Yeah, it's like you only it's like I never was a big drinker, but uh, I had people over once, and they made um, margaritas, and I crashed out, and like the all of the margarita fixins stayed out all night,
uh,
and so I woke up the next morning to just the smell of like tequila and lime, and it was like I didn't even like, I mean, I've never gotten like, you know so drunk that I had a hangover, but from then on it was
amazing.
just the smell of waking up to that was just like, okay, I never want to smell that shit again. Just because it
Wow.
was just like, oh, that's not something that you want to wake up to. It's just like
Like, yes.
tequila and limes that have been sitting out all night.
It's like and again, you probably haven't had this experience, but like when you have a certain alcohol and
Right.
you just have really bad night or something.
Yeah.
Like you won't touch it. Like I don't think I could drink gin ever again. Um,
It's so crazy. It's like I wonder if that's just our body trying to protect us from ourselves.
absolutely. Does it?
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't help when it applies to like coffee, chocolate, ice cream, or something like that.
Right.
Though it's.
Right.
I
Well, yeah,
I
you've,
had
you've
that
had that
for a while, a
experience.
long
It's
time
like
ago.
there was this place near where I used to work, and like I used to eat lunch there, like you know, probably 3 times a week. 2 or 3 times a week. You go over and just like grab a cheap sandwich or something, and then just one day, I went over there and like the sandwich made me sick. Like there was just something
Mm,
wrong with it that one time. And then I
mm,
could basically never ever eat a sandwich from there again. Even though it's like, if I ran up the like, sick to not sick ratio, it would probably be like, maybe a 2 or 3% chance uh that I would get sick again. But it's just like, no, it's your body saying like, nope, really didn't like that, and I'm gonna make sure that you never go near that again.
it's just being a good body.
Yeah, just looking out for us.
What the hell was the? What was the? You asked a question like a long time ago.
I did.
Oh, you. Oh. Because I was trying to sorry, I'm banging the meeting Satan.
Oh, right, right. Yeah. So what in
I think
what
I figured some.
okay, good.
Well, I don't know specifically, but I think it's like something to do with uh, unknowingly, like unknowingly causing disaster or unknowingly really like just annoying people. Like I have a secret, maybe not so secret, like fear of being, especially being creepy, like creeping on people, but also being like annoying or feeling. I've got secretly like I've always felt that like I'm leaving in my wake like some just terror. Like everybody's like, oh
Mm.
my god, I can't believe like he just doesn't get it or something. You know, like he like
Right,
I'm.
right.
I think because maybe it's because part of my head's like always kind of in the clouds, sort of. I feel like I have to focus to like be here and do this stuff sometimes. So I'm like, I wonder if I forget. Maybe I forget things a lot, and I'm just like I forget how to, you know, navigate in society and things, and I'm like leaving behind people who are just frustrated and confused, and like some kind of like, uh,
Like you have some incredibly
inadvertently being a trickster or
obnoxious
something.
personality trait that you're completely unaware of, basically.
Yes, and again, it's like this is part of me just now expects you to be thinking, oh yeah, yeah, I know the one that he's.
I will tell you exactly
I
what it
know what it
is.
is.
No.
Yeah, I could tell you what it is. I could tell him, but I'm not going to tell him because it'd be hurtful and like it'd be weird.
No,
But that goes along with me feeling like
I've
I
known
also
people
feel like
like that. It's like
yeah. So
like
you would
there are people who you meet in life where they're completely unaware of it, but they have this kind of like overwhelming need to like be right.
yeah,
Um, and who can't someone like you or I who's more easygoing may like be like, well, I could correct like somebody's uh, misconception about this one thing. Like it's obviously that just in speaking with them, they don't really understand exactly what it is that like I'm talking about. So
yeah,
I could expend the energy to kind of fix that misunderstanding, or I could just let it go because it's not worth the effort, basically.
yeah.
Um,
You know, this is the kind. These are the kinds of people. I guess I've seen enough of this kind of stuff. Like I feel like, oh shit, am I like, not. I feel like I'm self-aware, but I'm not self-aware really at all, and I don't know, or at least in these situations. And people are just waiting for me to go away, and they're just like, "Oh my god, can you believe what he? Oh Jesus Christ, that was," which I'm
yeah.
sure has happened in my life, but um, I guess it's like a thing. Like the last thing I'd ever want to be is like that, and that goes along with too um, the feeling that people really don't want to. Uh, Not that they don't like me, but they don't really necessarily want to be in contact or like to see them when I see, or you know what I mean? Like some weird feeling that like it's like imposter or something. Like people don't care. They don't really. I could disappear and it's fine. Like they're nobody's like going, where the hell's Mark? That kind of feeling that uh like I'm not making an impact on anybody's lives or something to the point where they're like, damn, I haven't heard from that guy in a while, or he's oh, it's really good to see him, or that kind of thing. I don't. I guess it's an imposter thing. Like I feel like, but it's
That's
not true.
understandable.
I mean, I
I mean,
feel
I've had that
absolutely
same
loved
worry.
I feel loved and appreciated by everybody that I know. So it's never proven to be true ever, and everybody's like, you know,
Well, that's
amazing
the
and
thing. I think
supportive
a
always in
lot
my
of
life.
like it's the unrational or irrational part of your brain that that's it's the source of a lot of worries like that. It's the voice in your head that you try to keep quiet. So I think a lot of like inherent fears that people have about themselves are caused by that little voice that they try to keep quiet, but sometimes they can't. I mean, I know that's the way it's been in my life. Is the things that I spend the most time worrying about are probably a lot of the most irrational things that you can really worry about.
Yeah.
Like I have a really good friend who is constantly concerned about the way in which people may perceive her, and is in will apologize for things that may never have entered anybody's mind, had
Mm.
it not kind of been brought up in some way. And that's like, and then I know people that are the complete polar opposite of that,
Yeah.
which never, which don't pick up on subtleties, or people who hear somebody say something and believe that there's a message in that thing that was specifically meant for them. It's people that
Uh,
hear things that aren't there, but perceive things between the words that may or may not
oh,
have ever been there.
like the interview you mentioned.
The what?
Interview?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, things like that, which is like, I have no idea what you're referring to, but no, that those never popped into my mind. Um,
I guess in that case I can understand it now. I'm like, obviously I've dealt with that kind of feeling too. Like, oh my God, they're gonna go back and say, I mean, I'm not
yeah,
gonna go like apologize for a bunch of crap that I know that I didn't do, but uh, what's weird though, like I consider myself very confident and like I don't really care, you know, I'm just like whatever I am. So it's not that it's like causing me to like feel, uh, pain or something. It's just I don't know. There's like this weird. I always had this. I think since I was a kid, like this weird little mini kind of like conspiracy daydream where like I always thought, well, I wonder if everyone else is psychically linked. Like I wonder if everyone else is like, or most almost everyone, they're linked that way, and we're supposed to be. And I came out.
Max, I just brushed him and he's all excited.
oh, Cadillacs. He just had a lunch.
Okay. When today?
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Come.
Mm, um. So like, yeah, I just thought like everybody was maybe linked, like psychically linked or something,
So that they're all
telepathic or something.
sharing these thoughts with each
Like,
other that you
yeah, like
can't be a part
everybody's
of.
everyone's involved in it, but somehow I came out broken, and they're
That's
all
a
just like
terrifying
it's
thought.
almost like this outside. Everybody's just like, oh hi, treating me just great, but secretly they're like talking to each other. Oh my god, oh that poor guy. He's just he can't do this. He's one of those, and like um, and then again, and it's this weird mental uh game thing, and like I think about that, like I say that, and then I'm immediately thinking, yeah, and Brian's thinking, oh yeah, well, we all know this, but we're not telling you because it'd be too
Like, oh my
harmful
god, you
to you,
didn't
and
know? You didn't know?
yeah.
This is a
Oh, you
really
poor
interesting one.
poor person.
I don't know if I have an answer to this, but what's something that only you are the expert in? Like, what's like, I guess, some deep wealth of knowledge that you have about something that most people would know nothing about?
So not literally only me, but like almost nobody is.
right, that very few people, are know nearly as much about this one thing as you.
Do you have an answer for that?
I'm trying to think of one. But I
Besides the
don't know if
obvious,
it's, it's like, yeah, I probably know a lot more about sneakers than a lot of people. I probably know more about like I don't know, Douglas Adams than a lot of people. I don't
Mhm.
know if I have anything. It's like I'm not some like insane like I don't have some insane like baseball trivia style mind where it's like I know a ton of stuff about one particular thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that one.
Nothing's coming to me because I feel like I don't collect. I don't collect information like that.
Yeah.
And anything I do, I feel like, well, I'm just one of like so many people that can.
I go down a lot of rabbit holes,
Uh,
um, but they're often short lived, and I often don't retain the information. Um,
yeah.
and it's like I'll become interested in something and start like digging into it and spend several hours, down this like random rabbit hole learning about like just something that catches my fancy. Um,
Yeah. Same here.
it's a good.
It,
What is something that makes someone instantly unattractive? Um, For me, it's shit talking. Um, it's like the moment
hey,
you and I'm making I'm inferring that this is like uh the kind of thing where it's like you meet somebody and you're like, oh, that person's cool and interesting and whatever and
mhm.
hot, and then they do something where you're like, nope. um to me that would be like, basically talking down about other people. That immediately I think is that's something that makes somebody immediately shitty, like no matter what.
Yeah, that's an obvious one for me too.
Yeah.
And just well, that and like super negativity.
Yeah.
Everything sucks
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything's terrible. I can't even like spend time around that.
Yeah.
We've well, I don't know. I'm sure we both known people that were like that. It's just like I can't. I just can't do it.
I really like this one. If you could do anything without consequence, what would it be? um
Oh, geez.
I think for me it would probably just be stealing. Like I don't think I would want to do anything, like uh like I don't think I would want to do anything carnal, like uh,
Yeah.
killing people or uh, sexing people. I think it would
Well,
just be like, I'm kind of light on funds right now. There's a bank right there, and their money's all protected, and I'll just borrow some.
mm,
It's
without
just like
consequence,
I think
what do you think
consequences.
that
Like without in that, it would be like you wouldn't have like you wouldn't get caught and have to go to jail. It's like if you.
but yeah, for sure. That's the consequence. But do you think this includes like social consequences? Like people,
That's.
if
Mm.
it's learned that you're like, oh my god, that guy's like, you steal seriously, or
I
whatever
like
it
to think
is.
that even if it was a world without consequence, I'd like to think that uh, in this reality, um, I would still be very picky and choosy about who I stole from. So I feel like if you could live a really nice life while diminishing, like say if I could live the most amazing life I could have ever imagined, and I would only diminish 1/10 of Jeff Bezos's wealth. Like that is truly, I think, without consequence, even if everybody knew. You know, because it's like, where
Yeah.
is the actual harm in this scenario? Because that, I mean,
That
that's
would
the
actually be
reality of the world that we live in. Is that probably, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people could live amazing lives, with just one person losing only a mere fraction of their net worth. I mean, I feel like that is truly without consequence.
that sounds like a dream for you, actually. That's like your dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and at the most, in reality, you're mildly inconveniencing one person. like, like there's not even really like any real
Mm,
consequence to that.
The masses are definitely behind you there.
Yeah.
People, you be a folk hero.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think,
You probably enjoy that.
I think that's my answer is like, yeah, I just,
That's like a good one.
I would have like just random access to like a multi-billionaire's bank account and just every so often would just transfer some funds. Like that's, like that's my answer. I just, I have access to like Jeff Bezos's bank account and I can just be like, I'm going to transfer, oh no, I'm going to go crazy this weekend. I'm going to transfer like $10 million out of his account and just
Do
go
you send it?
really crazy this weekend.
Do you also send him messages like in the numbers, like I don't know,
Oh
like
yeah.
boobs or whatever you used to type on the
Right.
calculator? Like you type
Just attach a little note to every bank transfer.
ass or what?
Yeah.
Anytime that he gets saucy in the news or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Do you have an answer to that one?
um okay, are you gonna say that it's without personal consequence, like harm or
Yes. Yes.
being arrested or whatever, or is it all? Does it include social consequence? Because that one I'd have to think about and for a long time and probably it
I
I
feel
mean
like that
I
may
don't even
be
know where to start with
implied
that.
because if it's something that could theoretically like, ruin your life, I feel like that would be excluded in the without consequence logic.
Okay, so everybody's memory is not going to get wiped after
Right, right.
it happens. Okay. Um, without consequence.
Oh,
Is it? It's do anything without consequence, right?
yes, yes.
Um, I think I'm going to go with something physical. I don't know how to translate it, but like um um
Like give
how could
yourself
I
some
word
sort of
that
like special ability.
or invulnerability to like falling or something, because that'd be hilarious.
So you just
Like fall off a
randomly
building
mess with
for
people by
laughing.
jumping off of buildings.
I don't know, but that's super limited in scopes. It's probably a dumb one. Um,
Well, I think there's definitely something worth. I think there's definitely something noble about choosing something that really doesn't improve your life in any considerable way, but just makes you stand apart in some very strange way.
thanks for making me feel better. That's a pretty dumb answer. Oh no, it's no, it's a noble choice.
Well, I
You're
mean, if you
thinking
could just
because there's
randomly manifest like a second head, like out of one of your shoulders,
well, well, I mean, if we're talking abilities, man, like that's a whole other question. I guess
that's true.
falling off a building and not getting hurt is probably in that, because I shouldn't even answer that way because that's like, you know, yeah, that's like a whole other thing. That's like superpowers thing. But
This is
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure I've got a better answer in there somewhere.
This is I think a brilliant one. You are an necromancer. Instead of bringing people back from the dead, you have the power to resurrect any dead meme, YouTube channel, abandoned web comic, or anything else dead online. How would you use your power? I think that's a really good
I
one.
think I
Just
know.
think of like all of the great things that used to exist on the internet that are now gone. You know,
Yeah.
like something like Syphil and Ollie, or like, you know, bringing back some like great web series or something.
Hamster dance. That was a good one. But I have the original, not the crappy remix and all the other. I think I have an answer. I don't know if you do. Or if
Go
you're
ahead.
about to tell one. I think because for some reason I'm like obsessed with this, and it's really stupid, and nobody even now even knows what the fuck I'd be talking about. But I'd bring back and make widely known the fact that Subway stole a meme for their or maybe they paid somebody, I don't know, for their We Love the Subs campaign.
Yeah.
Back in the what the fuck was it, 2002 or something? And and I had seen and I had loved the original We Like the Moon, which had like those little, what are those creatures called? The little,
I don't even know.
those little like things with the red eyes and like the little big finger pads that like hang out on, what the fuck are those called? Anyway, had those creatures in it and they're just hanging out and somebody like animated the mouths and like did a song. We like them. We like the moon. Do do do
Yeah.
do do do. And
So
it was
I always
amazing. And then
guess I
turned
gave
into a
them
fucking commercial. And
the benefit of the doubt. So they didn't work at all with the original concrete content
well,
creator on that.
I don't know for sure, but it's not that even like whether or not they got something. It's the fact that everybody who mentions that thing, they're always like, "Oh yeah, we like the subs or whatever. We
Right,
love the
right.
subs," and they're like, they mention the fucking ad campaign and not the people who made this hilarious, like weird, super weird thing, just for fun. That's the part that pissed me off. So I would probably bring that back
Yeah.
and then put it in everyone's face and like bring Subway, hold them to account, or I don't know what the stupid result of that would be, but I would feel better at least that it's like a quest that nobody cares about but me.
Yeah.
I'd be happy about it.
Man. I'm trying to think of a good answer and I just can't think of one.
Really? I thought you'd have tons.
I had an initial thought of like Syphil and Ollie. That was like this very.
I didn't know it was a web thing.
I don't know if
was
it
a
was
TV.
either, and that's why I'm wondering if it's even a good answer. It was like I feel like it may have initially started out sort of like I think it probably wasn't the web because I feel like that. Man, there was like this era of like MTV, you know, the whole liquid television thing that I think was like pre-web. Either that or it was like during the like heyday of like dial-up internet. So I don't know if Syphil and Ollie, I'll have to look that up. And see if it did start on the web or if it started immediately with like MTV.
I can't say I've ever seen it. I probably have. But
It first so it first aired in 1998 and it was only out for like
damn.
a year. It was a TV show. Just Liam Lynch was the guy who created it, and it was I guess on MTV, the whole liquid television. It was just sock puppets, and it was just pure absurdity. And that was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of other things like, you know, it's broad, but I would say like IRC, Like I miss the days of like small IRC chat rooms that were
Mm-hmm.
like kind of super specific in like what the interests were. Like um uh, there's this website called DAP Central, which was like before like Mystery Science Theater 3000 specifically started to get its resurgence and come out on like DVD and stuff like that. Um, the only real existence of most of those shows was on people's VHS tapes because the nature of that
Mm-hmm.
show made it so that like they only had the rights to rebroadcast the show for a certain amount of time. And once those rights expired, they could no longer rebroadcast episodes of the show. So people just sat on these huge VHS collections. And then this digital archive project came out, and people started digitally archiving and sharing like VHS cassettes of like all of these like out of date TV shows, or like like The Adventures of Pete and Pete was another show that they would archive. And so they would archive all of these like
Uh,
old shows that just had never, pre DVD uh, ever been released. So I'd say like little, like small little online communities like that. Um, that pre Twitter and Facebook and all that, those just finding these weird little like BBS systems or IRC chat rooms and stuff like that. Those were
mm,
cool.
hmm.
Um,
See, that's actually useful, and
yeah, I'm
that's
trying to
that's what I
think.
was
Is
looking for from you. Something that
Yeah.
was
uh,
actually helpful.
what is one thing that you hate but literally everyone else seems to love? That's a tough one because I think that's a really hard one for like me because most things that are wildly successful, I tend not to like just most of the time. It's like I think
Yeah,
most
same.
of the things
Here.
that are geared to reach the most amount of people are the things I usually find the least interest in. You know, like like but I'm also thinking of things like, the Big Bang Theory and the Transformers movies. It's
I
like,
was just thinking of that one, yeah, and
you
both
know,
of
it,
those now.
it,
Yes,
it's like these, those. So I feel like that's a hard one because that's a
Friends.
lot of things for me. Oh,
Friends is
interesting.
another one. I
Bianca
can't
loves that
stand. I think it's
show.
garbage.
I I
Sorry,
I
sorry,
like
Bianca.
it.
I didn't
Okay.
think personal.
Um, I don't
I think
dislike
it's.
it. So what
I
what
just.
about it? What about it turns you off, or
I
do you
don't like
hate?
any of the people, and I don't think the writing is
The
like
Office is that for
anything that's going
me.
to carry me. The American Office.
Yes, I've never seen the British one.
It's
Yeah,
fucking great. I don't even want to watch the American one. I know that's probably stupid, but because everybody loves it. But I've seen the
I've
British one is like
wanted to
its own
do.
thing that aligns with what I
So
like.
you've
So
never seen the American version?
no, I don't
See,
see
I
the
had this
the
idea
point.
of that I wanted to do, and I don't want to put you through this because I feel like it would be rude. I want to find somebody who absolutely loves that show and have an entire podcast dedicated to them trying to convince me of why they're right.
Oh, you mean
Because
the British version?
no, the US one.
Oh
And
yeah,
maybe
oh yeah,
both.
yeah,
I don't know because like I think that when Ricky Gervais is doing his "I'm insufferable" shtick, I find him
yeah.
genuinely unlikable, and I feel like the British Office would be that like at its most egregious. And that's the problem that I have with the American Office is like the Michael Scott character is just genuinely unlikable, and I do not see any redeeming qualities in him.
Well, I feel that too, but like the Ricky Gervais in The Office, I feel was more subtle.
Uh,
I'm not
and
saying more
that's
like in comparison. I think it was more subtle even maybe than stuff he did later because it was more
okay.
like a lot of the stuff in that show was subtle, like really subtle sometimes. And
Well, British comedy is generally superior to American comedy for those very reasons. I feel like
why I think
American
he'd be on
comedy
board.
is kind of like played up quite a bit.
Yes, but I think
I don't
it,
think we
what
give
do
our,
you?
we don't give people a lot of we don't give people a lot of credit to understand subtlety in this country.
No, no, it's we're yeah. Um, what Ricky Gervais things make you
Oh,
uh do not enjoy? I mean, because I can't think of anything I've seen him after that. Honestly,
so
I'm trying to get a handle on his
I got
insufferable.
into like the Ricky Gervais podcast for a while. You know, the stuff that he did with Carl Pilkington, and like he has a tendency to just be mean for being mean's sake. Um,
Uh,
and like the the Carl Pilkington character in the podcast and all the other stuff was he's always kind of like just he's not a character, he's just genuinely himself, and that's just the way that he is. And like um Gervais seemed to just like enjoy making fun of him. And
uh,
so and that's just like one kind of thing, but I think uh my my thing was like he has a tendency to just be cruel, and that's
well,
funny.
I I can see that, but I will say that I don't feel like that was his role at all in The Office. It was
Okay.
just him. I mean, it wasn't like it was like maybe a more subtle version of that, but it was like in his character that was just a doofus basically, and
Yeah.
was like not really trying to. I think the point is Ricky Gervais like doing his thing. He sounds smarter, and it's more cutting that way, right?
Right.
But in The
Yes.
Office, he was just kind of a dumbass, and he was not self-aware, and he was like not able to do that because he sucked.
Right.
So,
Okay.
um, so yeah, I would say it's different. It's a different animal.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
I'd be interested in that. Like I still like I want to understand what the appeal of the American Office is. And I still like the idea of someone trying to convince me of it, because there are a lot of people
yeah.
who I'm pretty much like on board with most of their sensibilities. Um and I've always had that disconnect, particularly with The Office, because it's like I don't I don't I understand cringe humor. I just don't particularly like it. It's like I don't see the point in it. It's uh I remember like the show Malcolm in the Middle was like that with me, because it was like it was everybody was like the mother was so awful and yelly, and everybody was so dumb, and I'm just like, why? It's like it's like, why would I want to spend my time watching a horrible family of people
Right.
be horrible to each other? It's like I've never understood that kind of genre of humor. It just, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Same. People yelling at each other and being terrible. Like what's
Yeah, yeah,
it only
exactly.
goes so far.
Oh,
Um,
I like this one. If you could know the answer to one mysterious event from history, completely and fully, what would it be?
one mysterious event in history.
Yeah. It's like one of the weird, unexplained events in history. Uh, If you could understand it completely and fully, what would it be? I'd say for me, it would have to be the election of Donald Trump. Because if I understood it completely and fully, then maybe I could make sure that it never happens again.
All of history, and you're going with. I guess it's more useful to you though, because it's not ancient history. So I guess that sounds like a
Well, also,
solid
I mean, I feel
choice.
like we do understand a hell of a lot of it. And so it's not as unexplained as, I think it would be. But,
Yeah.
God.
Crikey.
I mean, there's some obvious ones. Like, I mean, Roswell isn't necessarily an event. Um, Man, a lot of these are pretty tough.
I feel like there's a good answer in there somewhere. Because I'm only coming up with things like the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, there's the pyramids. I mean,
Things like
that's a really
pyramids,
good one. Malaysian Airlines
the
Flight 370,
yeah.
Stonehenge,
Yeah, I don't know. Um,
JFK,
Nazca
Jeffrey
lines,
Epstein. What happened to DB Cooper, who killed Tupac?
GP Cooper, yeah. Nazca
DB
lines
Cooper's a good
actually is a
one.
pretty good one.
Hmm?
'Cause that seems too weird. The Nazca lines, the big
Nazca lines. What's
those
that one?
Nazca, those big. I'm probably pronouncing incorrectly, but those big giant like things drawn on the ground that are
Mm.
just gigantic. For some reason, they drew them on the ground, and it looked like you're supposed to see them from the air because they're just like these giant pictures of like an antelope or something.
Oh wow.
Remember those? Um, NAZCA. I forget where it is,
NAZCA.
like in Peru or something.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
Um,
That's interesting.
I mean, it's not like a because I'd want to take some time and like think of the one that could like you know
So,
explain so many other things.
what is the
But
difference between Nazca lines and crop circles? Is it that some are done in the dirt and some are done on in crops?
no, the Nazca lines were made by humans for some reason. That's the whole mystery is they don't know why. Why would they make things that you can only see from the air when they're
Right.
land dwelling people that don't have like I don't think even think there were like any mountains in the area. I could be mistaken, but it's like
Interesting.
they just look like you're not going to make sense of them until you get up like above them in the air. So that's what makes them so weird. Crop circles are ostensibly done by
Right.
some sort of craft from you know
And these are also so
extra
well, so they're
human
also
craft.
much, much,
But
much, much, much older.
yes, that was the other part
Interesting.
of it, and bigger too. I think in general.
Mhm.
Uh, Although I don't know, like I don't know what the latest crop circle thing is. Some people feel like we figured it out, and it was just like a couple dudes with boards on ropes. But have you been following the UAP stuff?
No.
The the whole Navy like basically disclosing that
Oh,
well the Navy started with the Navy, but now I think it's like the DHS, like the Homeland Security or something. The C no, it's not. I'm sorry. It's the CIA, I think, now is like coming out with things and saying, yes, this happened. This was a thing. There was like a thing. And I watched all the videos. I don't know if you've seen any of those. The
mm-mm.
latest one was like a weird thing that was kind of like going root, root, as they do, in
Right.
it's like it was just like this weird bubble thing that was going kind of doing this weird shit like above the water, and then it went down into the water apparently
Hmm.
with no regard to like physics or anything. Um, this is a thing that's like been. It's weird to me that no, it's not a bigger deal. This stuff and the Navy pilot videos, which is like kind of the beginning of this whole like disclosure. It's not disclosure with capital D that everybody's been wanting for years and years, where they say yes, there are alien, creatures coming. They're just like disclosing information, like saying I think that's why they're calling them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena,
Right.
because trying to separate it from like because what bothers me is people like the whole like, do you believe in UFOs? That's such a stupid fucking question to me.
Right.
Do you
Right.
believe in something existing
That
that you
hasn't been
can't identify
identified yet.
readily? Yeah, or that you can't. Well, yeah, shit happens all the time.
It's
People
such a
see a
low stakes question, and people make so much more out of it. It's like,
yeah.
well, yeah, I believe that there are things that we've seen that are unidentified. That's not.
I
There's
have
no
seen.
real There's no real like suggestion that it is extraterrestrial in some way. It is just unidentified.
Right. People have seen shooting stars
Right.
and it's like, oh my God, what was that?
Right.
It was this colorful thing flew across this. I mean, I've seen that shit too. But anyway, so like, yeah, what's weird is that it's not a bigger deal than it is, I think. That these things, because there's either they're admitting that, yes, there's something that we don't understand and it's like visiting us, or there's a there's a, there's some sort of like phenomenon that's happening and we don't understand what it is, or it's another country or something that's got something they're playing with and we don't know what it is, or there's like some other weird thing
Right.
we just don't know, like the
Right.
fact that we don't know and they're saying, yeah, we don't know, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
there it is. But I mean, that's fucking huge, like just from a you think from like a security standpoint,
Right.
you know I mean, it feels like at one time in this country's history, people would be like, "What the fuck is that?" The Russians it might have this thing, and we're or whatever it is. But like nobody really cares right now. Like people don't care. It's basically it's admitting that some weird shit's happening, and even our people can't explain it. Um, which in a way makes me feel, I guess, a little better. Like, okay, so it's just like something peeking into our little reality bubble, um, and nobody has a handle on it, which I feel better about that than like, some country has a new toy, or the old like somebody's in cahoots with aliens thing, which is
Right. Right.
seems kind of dumb. But I'm gonna throw it out there. It's something poking through, like the toe of some interdimensional creature is just like poking through, like a cat's like claw in a fishbowl. Somebody's interdimensional cat's just like clawing at something, and like their little claws creating this weird little shape in our reality. Probably something that stupid.
um, I like this one. What gives you the most euphoria? I feel like I kind of answered that recently in talking about like group creative collaboration is probably
Mm-hmm.
the answer for me.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? Maybe there should be a caveat to that question, assuming you are fully clothed.
Thank you for throwing that in before I answered. But no, I think it's it's weird. Like it's not maybe an event or something or a thing. It's like a particular point in the process of something where like, oh shit, this is really working. Like you typically like working on some creative work. Oh fuck yeah, that's awesome. Like that moment. And sometimes it's like it's coupled with like me listening to music or something. So it's like, yes, like I feel like I'm in the flow and this shit is working and I fucking love this right now. And I feel like I'm just doing exactly what I should be doing, and it's working. That's the euphoria. That or when somebody like I do something that I can see that people acknowledge like in the moment, like they get it, and I get instant feedback from it because I know like I connected somehow.
Nice. That's I think a good one. um,
All I got. Shit's blowing up outside.
oof, that's annoying.
How you doing, buddy? You doing okay? This happened last night too. Oh my goodness. Poor kittens.
Oh, are they getting
I
freaked out?
know, buddy. Oh, it's okay, buddy. Oh, Tam man. You're so handsome.
This is interesting. What's the worst dream you've ever had?
Depends on the time, like the timing. Because I've had dreams like basically where, like you're back in love with an ex or something,
Mm,
or you're going around doing stuff. And it's just kind of the last thing you'd want to, you know, last thing you'd even want to experience or
right,
like
right.
it's just not good. It's not good for you. Um,
I
or
remember I had one as a kid, and I woke up out of like a panic, and I remember had very little to do with the dream itself, and it just I think was more like the feeling in the dream, because all I remember saying, because I don't remember the dream incredibly well, was that and it involved like a bunch of chainsaws. Like I was in the middle of like a forest, and they were just like clearing trees, and so there
uh,
was just this like whining of like chainsaws all around me. Um, and like I woke up and I was just freaked out, and I was trying to explain it to my grandparents, and of course it didn't make any sense because of course dreams generally don't. Um, so I mean I think that was probably the worst dream I ever had, but it wasn't like uh, there was nothing I can really explain. It was just like it was this dream that kind of just like the environment that I was in within the dream just freaked me the hell out. So
mm,
it's trying to explain a dream to somebody always like I think I heard a comedian talking about that recently, where it's like nobody wants to hear you explain dreams because it's like because dreams never make any sort of logical sense. So it's like, so
yeah,
I was in my old high school, but it wasn't really my old high school. It was actually my house, but it just looked like my old high school. But everything was, the same. But I lived there. It's like none of it. Like it all makes sense in the dream because, you know, dreams
yeah.
don't make any
I'd
sense.
even
Then trying to explain them afterward is just like, no, I don't understand what you're saying because nothing makes sense.
I'd even say that it's like, I mean, not just boring, but it's just like I f- and unfortunately, like I don't know, it's just like an immediate kind of response. Sometimes it just feels like, oh well, you know, that's great for you, but like I don't. It's like I can't fully appreciate it. So it's almost like trying to bring it out into this world is like fruitless. Which is why that's kind of what stops me from trying to share my own dreams often,
Right.
because I'm like, this is why would I? It just means something to the deeper parts of myself. It doesn't really mean anything to anybody else. Um, what was the question? Did you ask a question? I'm thinking
The
about
worst
dreams.
dream you've ever had.
Oh, the worst. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I did
But you
answer.
said it kind of depends on the situation, which makes sense. Bianca's constantly
Yeah.
having dreams about like the house burning down with us in it. She has those
Yes.
types of dreams a lot. I don't remember
We're
many dreams nowadays.
yeah. Are those here we go talking about dreams. Are the dreams about burning the house burning?
No,
Like, are
it's
you
less about the
harmed?
house burning and more about like having to save the cats or something.
Okay, so you're okay. So it's dangerous because I recently. Oh Jesus. Well, then I take it all back about sharing dreams. I recently had a dream about everything burning, like the house burning, and like outside, like I was like looking out the window and it was burning, and I was just standing there in the middle of it, and like nothing was happening, and the people outside were freaking out, but I was like fine,
Mhm.
and it was a very short dream, but
I feel like this
see,
question was
I
literally
told you about my
written.
dream, and it didn't make any sense.
I feel like this question was literally written for you. Congratulations, you're now a shapeshifter. What's the first thing you're turning into?
Fucking a. Uh, oh my god. I'm just gonna like shit.
I'm gonna say Jeff Bezos and walk into the bank and take a bunch
Well,
of his
this
money.
is yeah. Maybe that'll go along with your that is your stealing ability.
Yep.
I mean, I'm gonna start like this is assuming I have unlimited shifts, right?
I'm
I
assuming
am
so because
suddenly a
you're now a
shapeshifter.
shapeshifter, and this is just you're test driving it with this.
Yes. Okay. Well, if I'm just if I do, it depends where I am. If I'm in my home, I'm gonna no fuck. It would have to be a big like monstrous like werewolf thing. It'd have to be some big
Now that
old
could be
big
your first and
weird
last
looking
shapeshift, then, though,
what?
because if you go into the world after shapeshifting to a big dangerous werewolf,
Yeah.
because I am assuming a potential caveat of this question is like you exist in a world without shapeshifters. I don't know. I don't want to put
That's a good point.
limitations on
No,
this question.
no, I mean, there's a plan that goes along with this. Like, I would find a place where basically nobody's going to bother me.
Gotcha. Okay.
A good place in the back in the day would have been like going out to the orchards in California because like
Right. Right.
I know that place and I used to roam around in there as a teenager. Um, so I'd just find a place and run around for a while and I mean, if I were just like stuck in my, like could go anywhere, I, I, I would shapeshift into a like a female version of myself or like a different kind of person, something that's totally different.
Think
Um,
if it was the first thing, I'd probably have to go with some sort of like uh, a hawk or something, to get the perspective of a
that's
bird
good.
for a while.
I would feel a little iffy about turning into something that's smaller,
Yeah,
you know, because I don't want
you
that
could turn
ride to
into a
end
dog and
once I
experience
have the
licking
power.
yourself for the first time.
Well, yeah. Um, I mean, that's a goal too. But yeah, like I wouldn't once I have see, I think I've overthought this whole like once I have that kind of power,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to do anything to like accidentally lose it,
Right.
like turn into a squirrel and get eaten by a
Right. Right.
something like
Yeah.
that. So, which would be super fun to be a squirrel,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, it, I
Right.
guess it depends if I get attacked, can I immediately shapeshift into some giant thing and just like rip its jaws apart and
That's a.
um
I like that.
but that's my if I have to have one answer, it'd be some giant monster and then I get to go roam and you know. But the pull would be too strong to not just do that around people. Like at some point I would have to go into a city and just like run around and shit and then turn the corner and turn back into myself
Right.
just to like fuck with people and just show people that because part of it would be just to show people that the world is much more interesting than you had imagined, seconds ago.
Mm. This is. I love the phrasing of this question. What is your quote? Roll the natural one in real life story. It's like a real life story critical fail. Um, I have one of those. Um, I had a friend, or have a friend, I haven't talked to him in quite a long time, who, for a short time, had a bit of an issue with cocaine. Um, and I was a little bit loose lipped about this fact and mentioned it to someone who I shouldn't have. And it wind it wound up finding its way back to my friend's father, who told my friend about it. And I had to have a incredibly awkward discussion with my friend about essentially running my mouth off when I shouldn't have. Um, is certainly a lesson learned there about uh, not talking shit about things that you shouldn't be talking about. Um, and also, uh, there's a valuable lesson in not talking about other people's business, and also a valuable lesson in uh, choosing the people you put trust in, or knowing uh, when you should open your mouth and say something and when you should keep that shit to yourself. Because that
Yes.
was, and oddly enough, I have a second story, which is very much the same as the first, except instead of being something that took a few years to come and bite me in the ass, it happened literally immediately. I had a friend who was dating a girl who was kind of crazy. Um, very, like, she would just fly off the handle. Um, and I basically knew a story about this person that was very questionable, um, and concerned me. Uh, So my friend called me over to help him move, and his brother was there, and we were both helping this guy move, and we were all in the room together, and then the girlfriend left, and the brother turned to me and was like, "She's fucking crazy, right?" And I was like, "Dude, you don't even know." And I start going into the story that I heard, and a few seconds later I see his brother's eyes dart over my shoulder. And I'm like, "Oh no." She came back into the room and was standing right behind me as I was telling this story, and flew the fuck off the handle. Um, and I made a very, I uh, wound up eating my words and apologizing, and like very awkward. So both of those come from the exact same place, which is opening my mouth when I shouldn't have said anything, injecting myself into other people's business. Um, so yeah, those are my two roll the natural one in real life stories.
That's rough.
You have any of those?
I'm surprised you didn't just walk out or just like,
I
all
thought
right.
about it. It
Um,
was in the interest of I
oh,
didn't.
you trying to preserve something?
Yeah, it's like, you've. I think most people have probably had a situation where it's like somebody that they really care about is in a relationship that you just don't understand and don't think is healthy for them or whatever. But
Mhm.
in the interest of retaining your friendship with that person and not like making their life more complicated, you just kind
Right,
of make peace.
right.
So that was that. I didn't necessarily believe that anything I said was inherently wrong, but being caught in it and called out, um, it's just like, well, yeah, in the interest of trying to make my friend's life slightly less complicated, just apologize and move on.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it didn't make
Uh,
the person any less crazy. It was just like, you know, yeah.
Um,
It's interesting though, and I'm like that relationship is gone now. It's no longer there, and I've never had a follow up with my friend about it, which could be an interesting conversation at some point. To be like, dude, so what the hell?
yeah, maybe that's like long gone or something, and you can kind of commiserate. On that. I'm drawing a blank. I can't think. I, I think I think I tend to forget what is the term all the kids are using these days? My L's.
Oh yeah, your losses, your L's.
I I'm I think I just like let all that stuff fade or something because I'm not. I know I've had plenty of like dumb awkward things. You know what? I just remembered one. I remembered one that's was pretty dumb. Is that too loud?
What?
Can you hear that? Exploding stuff outside?
Oh, not really. I probably will in the audio though,
It'll be
but
fine. It'll just spice it up a little bit.
yeah.
Um, I remember I was this is years ago. I was like at a comics convention, and I met somebody who I knew who like had come from like was doing comics and stuff, and had come from Modesto, right? And I knew them in Modesto, and they were there, and I was like, oh, whoa, hi, you're doing this stuff. You got a booth or whatever, and um, talking about like because they had like got into comics and like had done some cool stuff, and I think it was like I made some stupid because only because there was always this like negative, like Modesto sucks mentality when I was there. Because in a lot of, some of it kind of did suck. And it was like culturally not where it is now. And it was just like not the best place to be always. And um, uh, so I kind of like, I'll always joke about that because I like lived there. I lived through that. So I was like talking to this person and I was like, oh, yeah, hey, something about, yeah, so you're here and you're like meeting all your fans and stuff or meeting your, they're just like, yeah, yeah, like just cool to get out here and do this. So I said some stupid thing like, oh well, something like, oh, like some, one of those dumb like a side jokes. Well, I won't tell anybody, I know you're where you're from or something like that, and then of course naturally it like went right into like, oh. Oh yeah, so what's going on? Like with us, like what are we doing these days? Like, oh yeah, well I'm in Modesto and like doing, and it's like, yeah, of course. Still, not like I was trash talking, but I just like felt like a fucking idiot. But it's much better now. Modesto did suck at one point. So
What made Modesto suck? Because I don't think I ever really knew that. Like, what was the connotation there?
um I think it's like because we had like stickers and things were up, and this is like again when I was in high school. It was the kind of a thing, and everybody wanted to escape, and I think that meant like more culturally than anything else. Like, God, this place just like has nothing. It just sucks. It's just like, bunch of like dumb. I don't know. It had such a mix of people, but like the culture was just not there, and I think that was it. It just needed to grow up a little bit
Okay.
because whoever was making the stickers was obviously like some kind of creative person, and I always felt
Gotcha.
like it was a cultural wasteland. So.
Okay.
Uh, and it got fucking hot sometimes. I mean, it's the kind of place where you're like, well, I'm in the middle, right in the middle of, I'm 2 hours away from everything, 2 hours away from the city, the mountains, the ocean. Like, but that doesn't mean that when you have to live there, there's nothing there. You have to go 2 hours to get to anything that's pleasurable, or not anything, but most cool stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all right. I'll probably like get nostalgic about it over time.
Everybody gets
I
nostalgic eventually.
Yeah, I like to go back and like see things, places I lived and stuff, but I don't know.
I'm curious about like when I finally get back to Portland after all these years, seeing what the reality is after my absence.
Hmm. How it fell
I
apart when you left.
yeah, exactly. Um I have an answer for this one just off the top of my head. The question is, what's the most American shit ever? Um, in Portland, I worked at a car magazine for about 6 years, and one of the kind of the only benefit there was every once in a while, we would get these press cars in um, that we would have for a week, and the writers would mostly drive them, and we would write about them in the magazine each month. And so I was incredibly broke. I had no money in my bank account, and I had about $3 in my wallet. Um, so I took a $120,000 Jaguar, drove it a couple of blocks down to like a Jack in the Box and ordered like two items off of the dollar menu and went back. That I think is the most American shit that I've ever done.
Was that the plan, or did you happen to be eating dollar menu in those days? Or were you just like, oh my god, this is fucking perfect. I got to do this.
Oh no. The dollar menu was out of sheer desperation because I had no food and almost no money. And the $120,000 car was just because I really liked that Jag and enjoyed driving it.
Oh my god.
And it was kind of after the fact that I realized what I was doing in the middle of doing it. And afterwards was like, yeah, that's pretty much the most American thing that I've ever done.
I love that. It would like it would be a missed opportunity if you didn't do some
Yeah.
for you to not do something like that.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
I kind of wish it had been like, initially done
planned
out of
choice.
out of irony instead of like literally the only thing
Desperate
that I can afford
hunger.
is a couple of things off the dollar menu so that I can actually eat today.
Yeah. It's a bittersweet memory.
Yes.
I can tell.
In retrospect, I mean, I'll always remember it just because of how fucking ridiculous it was. But
Yeah. I love it. That's an amazing image. I have an answer.
nice.
RV demolition derby,
Oh Jesus.
destruction derby. It's the greatest fucking thing ever. If you or anyone listening ever gets a chance to go see it, it's so fucking great. I mean, I already like destruction derby anyway, but the RV version, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Stuff shearing off like fucking RVs, like with their whole like shell hanging off, dragging around, crashing into each other. It's fantastic.
Have you ever seen
very
the
American.
show Top Gear? It's a
I've
show
only
that I
seen it with
recommend.
you at your house.
Okay.
And it was more fun than I had imagined it would be.
It's a thing that I recommend to everybody because it's because everybody has anticipation going into it. Because like I really don't give a shit about cars.
Right, I was in the same.
And it's only when you actually watch it that you understand it, because it's incredibly hard to describe to anybody, because the description of it's people just don't understand the appeal even after you describe it.
Right.
But there's several episodes where they did like RV racing challenges. And so they would get like what they would do is they would get these like world renowned professional race car drivers together on a track driving RVs and just trying their hardest to win. So the entire time, it's like they're going around the track, bits of the RVs are falling off and staying on the track, and like people are crashing into them. It's it's I mean, I've heard of
Sounds
RV.
fantastic.
I think I've seen like RV demolition like video of it, but the RV races are another really cool one that I've seen them do as well.
I believe it. I think I'd be into that. Yeah, but man, you got it. I mean, if they get that stuff going again, fair season stuff. I mean, guaranteed win.
This is one we've covered before. What's the most random thing that sent you into depression? For me, it's like bad music at Safeway.
Right. Actually, you know what? I've had the same experience. I just realized that. It wasn't in Safeway, it was in Ross.
Yeah. That
crappy
tracks.
pop music in Ross. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really rough time, and I was just like, stop.
Yeah. I'm starting to run out of good ones here. Although I just keep scrolling. What competitions do you think should not happen? That's a really interesting one, because I assume that it's like kind of professional style competitions. I think
not
getting
like eating competitions.
Well, I think that would qualify. But I think of things like uh, like Miss America, or even things like, valedictorian. Um,
Right.
things that pit people against each other for no reason.
Or like
Um,
creative or intellectual pursuits.
yeah. It's kind of like what you were what you were talking about earlier with like gatekeepers. I think competitions, that are uh, judging the merits of something that is sort of inherently uh, subjective, I guess.
Right. That's a really
Um,
good one. Art, like any art competitions.
yeah, I think
I don't see the value in that.
any televised dating show like The Bachelor. I don't know. I think some
Oh,
people find
Jesus
that funny.
Christ.
Um,
I, it's signaling the decline of our
yeah,
anything reality is signaling our decline. Um, that's a good one. Art competitions, calling them competitions. There's
yeah,
plenty to go around. There's plenty to make. There's no sooner you can get out of a competitive mindset, the better.
yeah.
And you see everybody as peers and collaborators.
What's something someone has said to you that you will never forget? Mine is when Gregory Hines told me to stay cool. Um, I met Gregory Hines at an FAO Schwartz in San Francisco when I was a kid, and he told me to stay cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Also, this isn't somebody's. This is this wasn't like verbally said, but my freshman year in college, one of the resident advisors in my dorm uh, when I had to go home when my grandmother's health was really bad. I flew home not knowing that she had passed away the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one of the resident advisors put a letter under my door, um, basically saying that she knew I was going to be going through a really difficult time, and that she was there if I needed anybody to talk to. And that was like, it, for me, that was looking back, it was the first time that I had kind of like, a friend had done something kind of like emotionally supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I think it's just like, you have different types of friendships when you're a kid, and that's generally not something people kind of talk about when they're younger. Like
Mm-hmm.
friendships just aren't kind of like that when you're young. Um,
Yeah.
so that's just always kind of like I use that as an example of like, that's when I kind of figured out what like actual friendship was. Um, that kind of goes beyond like a superficial friendship.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big. It's a big moment.
Yeah, it's always kind of stayed with me because like it was just like, oh, okay, like that's, I guess, what like more like grown up friends like are like, is,
Yeah.
they talk about stuff that is more important than just like superficial nonsense. Ford, your toes is wet.
Yes.
Do you have one?
Uh, yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about I can't think. I don't think I can nail down the time when I realized that, like, started noticing like friendships shifting into that. But I remember that feeling. That was really neat. It's like this means more than just like hanging out and like saying dumb stuff
Right.
together or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of discussed this story a little bit before, but like I mean, I know I have like a good like couple of handfuls of things, like one sentence or a couple of word things that people have told me. I can't think of them all right now, but um, it's like for some reason they echo like the when Ted McKeever said or something like, you don't want to be the green girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's always stuck, you know. I think that was in what, last episode or something, a couple ago.
I think like 2 ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I told that story. But like basically, when like you don't want to be just stuck in one thing. Be the person who did that one thing and then ride that forever. You know. And there are others like people who've like basically things where people remind me that I do make an impact in some way, either negatively or positively. Those statements always stick with me because I tend to forget that. I'm just like, oh, it's fine. You guys got that. Like, I'm just kind of going through my own little world and not really, you know, not really like making that big of an effect. But then sometimes somebody will remind you, and that's those statements always stick. And again, it's like it's either could be for really good or bad. One of my off the top of my head, I remember somebody said something like it was for them. It was comforting just being. I think this was like an act, like comforting just to be around me or something. And I had to figure out what that meant, but it was like, it just made me look at like my behavior, like what was I doing to like help in that sense. Um, but I know I've had plenty on both sides of, good and bad, but
Yeah.
never gone unnoticed or forgotten.
Nice. Yeah. I think that
I
that
wish I had better
is,
better answers because I've got a ton of them. But
well, that's a good one. I think, it's like being told that you uh, make an impact. Because I also think that
yeah,
that's something that people just don't hear very often, period. Like, I don't know
yeah,
if anybody's told me that. I mean, I think the closest I've got to that is, some of the reactions that we've had from the show, just people like who actually say
hmm
that they can actually make it through 3 hours of listening to us talk and that sometimes they learn stuff from us, you know. I
hmm
mean, that's I think as close as I've come.
hmm yeah. It feels good, especially to some of us who feel like you know this reality may not be as real as
Yeah.
we all think it is. Um,
Um if you died right now and all you saw was a screen that said yes or no, what do you pick? I have
yes,
yeah, I
always.
think I would have to. I think I would have to go yes as well.
But I feel like you know what though? That's kind of scary because I feel like that if you saw that on a screen, that would mean would you like to go again?
Hmm.
Versus like
Hmm.
going back to like, outside the hologram or
Right.
wore where you get to
Purgatory
just
or
chill
whatever.
and or just like a better, like easy, you know, it's like an easy time. You just get to go chill and hang out in the lobby and
Did you
stuff.
see that people managed to catch the ocean on fire? Did you catch that on the internets?
Um, I might have. I
I
seem
think
to remember
it's
some kind of image
the
with
Gulf of
a like
Mexico.
a
It basically, it
pit.
was an image that looked like Godzilla coming out of the water. I
Good
mean,
job.
only humanity would find a way to catch water on fire. I mean, that's so unmistakably human. It's such a human thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's find this place where there's literally nothing within hundreds of miles other than just water. Let's find a way to set it on fire.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of impressive in a way.
Yeah, I mean it's
Uh,
impressive. It's impressive in that like we continually find ways to do the almost unthinkable.
yeah. I have a
Um
feeling we're going to be more and more impressed over time.
oh yeah, it's not, it's I saw Jon Stewart recently talking about like COVID and everything, and he was talking about science, and he basically said that like, you know, there always needs to be somebody in the room that asks the question, you know, should we actually do this? I feel like, so many things are done because they suddenly become possible. Um,
Mm.
but maybe
So what we
shouldn't
do,
actually be done.
right? It's like an ethics, you know, thing.
Yeah.
We have ethics, you know, sort of set up at ethics considerations made in other, endeavors built in. Um, Part of me likes that it's just humans just tend to just go, oh God, okay, we're doing that now. Because how could you not, if you're
Hmm.
curious, like how could you not, um, I don't know. I think it's just like the price of curiosity, but yeah, it's like when it's not even a thing for like, I mean, we're talking like world stage things, not just like, hey, we're making a new technology to like,
Right. Right.
harvest sunlight. Should we do this? Or it's like shit that's gonna blow up or like melt down or
I mean, it's kind of crazy when you
yeah.
think of it that, like, just this, like, living in a world in which at any moment somebody on the other side of the world could create something or invent something that will overnight change, like, the reality of living on this planet. Like, as far as, like, you know, somebody obviously somewhere figured out steam power first, right? Or, charcoal power, right? And so that starts happening. And then, we're not aware of how that's going to change the world over the course of the next several hundred years. And then we do, oil and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like that we're constantly advancing technology, but don't always understand the long term effects of that new technology and how, it'll change the lives for the next couple of generations of humans. I mean, I know that like nowadays people try to be a lot more careful with like doing environmental impact studies and everything, but it's we hit, I guess the question becomes is like how there have been these stages in evolution in which there's been one invention that has completely completely changed the way that the world works in ways that we could never understand prior to the existence of that same technology.
Huh?
And so I
Mhm.
guess the question is, do we at this stage believe that we've exhausted all of those? And is that an incredibly naive or arrogant thought? So it's like, is there going
Yes,
to
it
be
is.
another one of those? Is there going to be like the internet 2.0? It's like, because I think that it's like, yes, that's a technology that didn't really exist uh, 50 years ago that has
Mm-hmm.
completely changed everything, and not just like culturally, like not just in one place in the world. It's changed everything for everybody everywhere. And so, are we just assuming now that we've invented the internet that essentially we've experienced the last one of those changes, like for the next, you know,
Well,
couple thousand years?
yeah, I mean, just like anything else, like the way that people tend to think, like right now, this is like the worst it's ever been in whatever sense, or this is um, I feel like everybody thinks they're so smart.
Right.
It like we've got it. Oh my, no, we got this figured out. No, you don't understand. Like we saw all the mistakes. Like we worked it out. But I don't know. I say that, but like I think yes, but people actually kind of involved in like creating these things, they probably they know or eventually they'll know. Like the whole social media thing. Those people found out eventually how poisonous it is
Mm-hmm.
to the point where you know they're they're off. They're out talking to people about it and they're telling their kids not to use it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I feel like it's going to be probably never ending, but right now we're dealing with at least a few, like we're dealing with AI, which is kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, well, maybe a couple I'm off the top of my head, and the quantum world. That that one alone, and I'm a big proponent of that because I'm fascinated by the way that stuff works, and I feel like that's like unlocking magic,
Right. Right.
kind of, and um, even to understand it and be able to harness it. Jesus Christ, like we don't even know how how important that would be and how much that would change everything. Um, but at the same
So
time, it's
in,
like
in quantum, are you
we
are you
could,
talking kind of like multiverse theory, or what do you,
well,
or
just
you?
like being able to harness like things in the quantum world and like not just like identify, because now we're like measuring and identifying things, but like to understand how it works, why it works that way, why how to like reconcile, for example, like gravity and the way that the quantum world works. It's like things that they're still working on, and trying to like pull all these things together, and why things work on that in that scale, why they work so differently than they do in like the big this like 3D like classical reality. Um,
Okay.
there are all these questions, and it's like
I think the
to
problem that I have with that word is because the quantum world is an actual biological thing that does in fact exist, essentially. And, things in the universe smaller than an atom. But I think
mm,
because quantum is a word that gets thrown in to
mm,
so many discussions about the nature of reality, I think sometimes it's like it's hard to not hear just that phrase and think that it's like inherently referring to something like
just like
multiverse,
what's the
alternate
smallest.
dimensions, right? When in reality, it's like an actual study of science that nobody's ever been able to understand, but is an actual reality. Am
Yeah,
I
well, I mean,
correct?
like they're getting, well, yeah, it's just that they don't understand all of it, and they don't understand
Right,
how everything works, fits together, and
right.
they don't necessarily know how to like create, destroy things like all the things that they would like to, and harness everything. And I'm probably butchering the whole thing because I'm not a fucking quantum physicist.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's like you're right. There's like an amount of it is like we talk about it, and it's like the smallest breaking down into like the smallest, bits of matter or whatever. That's one way to talk about it. But also, I actually, for me, I add in all the things like all the weird shit that happens, like the entanglement, where, you know, particles are like spinning, they're basically entangled to where they're mirroring each other. And it doesn't matter how far away they are, they're interacting with each other like instantaneously. That that tells me that there's something going on
Okay.
besides just like, all of our usual, like you have to travel X speed to get X place at X time
Okay.
or whatever. There's
So that
something else happening there.
I think part of the reason that that's always been hard for me to wrap my head around is that I've never actually understood what quantum actually meant. And like
Yeah.
understanding, I
I
guess,
think
what that would be like, just the very, 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 very basics of like quantum mechanics is that there are things that exist in this world that are smaller than atoms and behave in ways that science as we understand it dictates is impossible. The study of that, and if we could actually figure out how those materials and particles behave in which they do, theoretically, understanding that would enable us to do things in our reality which have been defined as impossible. Is that the basics?
I think that's kind of a good way to basically state it. And I know I'm probably doing a disservice by calling everything like the quantum world, which is like it doesn't really mean
Well, it
anything.
seems,
But
yeah. I
it's
mean,
my
I'm
way to like wrap everything up into like all the stuff that like is that small or has to do with
mhm.
particles and waves and things and all the weird shit that happens around them. And uh, so I probably need to like nail down a better way to discuss it. As I've said many times, like it all makes sense in my head, and I can't
Right.
always find the right words to like describe. But um, uh, yeah, I mean, there's just so much there, and I feel like we don't even know. I mean, I feel like I've heard that echoed too. Like some people have said that like that this is like the number one thing that people don't even know about, and it's gonna blow their minds when we start to be able to use it.
Well,
But
and also
I totally believe that.
it certainly sounds like the logical next huge leap, because it's something that we know exists currently. We're studying it. We've never been able to understand it up until this point. But it certainly seems like if there was to be one like eureka moment in like our lifetimes, it could potentially be even a slight understanding of that, the potential like implications of that could change everything as we know it.
Mhm.
I mean, it seems like that's a certain, because that was actually, it was funny because as we were just kind of talking, I actually scrolled past a question on Ask Reddit that was specifically like, what is the next invention or discovery going to be that will change like everything in the world?
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff, I guess, related to the quantum world over the course of doing this podcast, and I've never quite even understood the very basic premise of what that means.
Yeah,
Um,
well, probably because I explained it badly
well, no, I
and I
mean,
didn't give you any like stuff
we've
to
always talked about,
read.
we've talked about things like, parallel universes and stuff like that. And I can understand the basic premise of that, but understanding at least the very, very, very basic premise of the quantum world and what quantum means,
Mhm.
that at least makes me
Well,
understand how that theory exists, you know, because like there's everybody, you know, you can understand the concept of like parallel universes in which different realities exist, but understanding like that there is in fact this study uh, where, you know, or the study of things that exist in this world that don't make any sense, and how potentially learning about those things could open that up. That's like a different part
Yeah.
of that, which
Yeah.
and that's the part I never really like understood. I watched Ant-Man a bunch
Yeah.
of times and it's never sunk in. So
Yeah, that's the. I mean, that's the part that fascinates me too. Like that, the unknown part of it, and where everybody's working on like some sort of, not just like the what do they call it, the theory of everything or whatever. Like they always thought that string theory was, but string theory seems to be kind of old, you know, like sort of passe, or just like they kept it alive too long. Maybe some people think that institutionally they kept string theory alive too long because it was bringing in money, but it didn't really go anywhere. And then they moved on to like holograph. Some moved to holographic universe theory. Anyway, what the fuck was my point? Yeah, that's the part that I am into. Like, there's just like a lot of potential for probably really bad things. I mean, when
God, yes.
we you know we have a hydrogen bomb now because we fucking, or not now, but we created that because we learned how to do that shit.
Right. It's like the you know, the reality of the way people behave in this world is the first time you discover something brand new that's going to change things like this, it immediately becomes like simultaneously there's the holy shit, what can we do with this? Like, how can we
Yeah.
use this to better our world? But the reality is people will immediately jump to how can people use this against us, and how can we prepare for it?
Yeah.
You know, and
Well,
you know,
yeah.
have a
Yeah.
whose dick is bigger contest with the rest of the
Well,
world.
yeah, we have like a thing. I mean, two unfortunate truths are like, well, anything gets created, you're like, well, how can we weaponize it? Or if it's beautiful, you know, even if it's beautiful, how can we weaponize it? Or if it's beautiful, well, how do you monetize it? It can't just be a
And
beautiful thing
sorry,
that's
three,
helpful and positive.
how can we fuck it?
Well, yes, and
I
depending,
mean,
you know, the order shifts sometimes depending on.
because every new technology immediately becomes okay, how can we use it to
Quantum
jerk
fucking.
off?
That's going to be
Right.
I wonder if quantumfucking.com is, because that is probably going to be a.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be
Quantum.
industry, and we should definitely get ahead of this.
I feel like I need to write a book called The Quantum Orgasm, and then just like create some like bullshit sex. What do they call them? Sexologists. And
Right.
then write some, because that's going to happen. It's like
Become the Dr.
thing
Ruth
that
of
people,
the quantum world.
like every technology or like advancement people kind of understand. You know, people like to make it like there's mystical and shit. Everybody's talking about fucking multiverses now, and
Mm-hmm.
people that are just like fucking. I mean, I'm talking like
Okay.
psychics and people that are, you know, it's in the culture now. So like people that don't know anything about anything, including me, are talking about it.
Okay. So, how long after the discovery of parallel universes would it take for Jeff Bezos to find out ways to have mistresses in multiple parallel universes that he can visit? I mean, so that's the reality. It's like that new world changing thing happens, and then immediately the rich elite start using this loophole to start having affairs. So it's like,
There's and even
I didn't cheat on
yes,
you. It was in a different reality. It was in a different universe. In that universe,
you don't understand. Yeah.
It
No,
can't
no.
be. It can't
was
be infidelity if it's not in the same universe.
Yeah. the alternate version of your wife or something, of like his
Right.
wife. That's really what I wanted. Um,
Actually, that
and to
show
take it,
Fringe that I told you
uh,
about, that's actually like that's actually kind of a plot line. That like that exact thing that you just said, where it's like
oh,
in one of the
awesome.
universes, him and this other character on the show are together, and he's gone between both of the universes, and so him coming back to the original one in which they're not a thing yet is weird.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's an actual plot point in an actual TV show, which is
yeah. This is just like the space. Have I told you about? Um, by the way, I haven't said this before, but I think Elon Musk has called his space thing SpaceX just so that he gets everybody to say space sex accidentally all the time.
yeah, I can see
But
that.
but the reason, if I were had the chance to go into space, I might have mentioned this before. The reason I would want to go into space is to have not just three dimensional, but zero gravity sex in space, because that's like such a unique thing. Like humans haven't been able to do this
This
to
is
our
true.
knowledge, and it's just like an experience you can't, you just couldn't get until like right now, that a regular person could just. But that on the along those lines of like the quantum thing, or I mean, sorry, multiverse thing. Again, like I'm thinking, how could I have a unique experience and like do something that nobody's ever done, or uh, because I'm a pervert apparently. Like, how could I like have fun with it and like do something? I don't know. I don't know. That goes into like a lot of
Would there
weird
be
territory, and I'm probably not
interdimensional
gonna.
glory holes? Like just a hole in one dimension, and then on the other end is just who knows what?
Yes, who exactly? Who knows what or where or
When
when?
I mean, you could have like
It could
we
be
could
just.
do the parallel universe version of Back to the Future, where instead of like going back to the future to get his mother and dad together, he has to like go in between dimensions in order to
Yes.
make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. How
Actually,
does that
that's
fit in
I'm
with?
sorry.
How does that
That's
fit with
exactly
glory
the
holes?
plot.
Are you
That's
making?
I literally
Huh?
that's what I just said. I realized that is the essentially the log line for Rick and Morty. It's
Oh,
Back
really?
to the
Okay.
Future. It very much is Back to the Future, and that it's a
Yes, that's
younger
kind of what I
kid
gathered.
and a old scientist, and they go between
Yeah.
dimensions.
Yes, to
So
find his parents or
Dan
something.
Harmon, much Harmon. No, it has nothing to do with parents, but it's like
Oh, okay.
the general conceit
Yes.
of the show is very much like a Back to the Future premise, except they're jumping in between realities
Right. Yeah.
instead of going back in
Which
time.
allows for, yeah, allows for lots of very interesting.
So just think, had we had this conversation, uh,
I wouldn't be thinking of what's on the other side of the,
well, had we had this conversation
potentially of the
8 years ago, we
interdimensional glory
also
hole.
could have been the creators of Rick and Morty, and we could have had Rick and Morty money had we had this conversation 8 years ago.
Yeah. Of course, we'd have to be really, actually. Well, I'd have to learn how to be a good writer, a writer in the first place. But we'd have to like. I mean, I was thinking about multiverses long ago. I just
Yeah,
didn't. Nobody cared. I didn't think to do anything with it, or I wasn't really thinking of using it for anything. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
that's
Maybe in one of those alternate realities,
in one of the alternate
we did.
realities. We did, in fact, think of this 8 years ago, and we're
Yes.
insanely rich now.
Somehow, I don't know how we I don't know.
In that
Would have met
universe, I
somehow.
actually pursued writing a lot more seriously and could actually do something with it.
And I met you. Where were you 8 years ago? You in Portland?
I was just moving from Portland to here, so maybe in that universe you moved to Portland earlier, and I
Or I
didn't
was at a
move
no, I
here.
was at a show. I was at a comic show,
Oh, there we go.
and you went because, comics and stuff.
This was a
Yeah, started talking.
I think all in all, this was perhaps our most ambitious episode yet. And I actually made an attempt to understand quantum physics, and we
With the
live
worst
streamed
possible
art.
guide.
Oh man,
Yeah. Yeah, you should probably actually read this stuff. I should probably reread this stuff. I'm hoping eventually there's some smart person that corrects everything I've ever said
yeah.
with all that stuff.
We need to
But
get just big enough to have somebody that edits the show for us and also fact checks us.
a staff scientist,
Yeah,
that'd be fucking awesome.
that would definitely be cool.
Yeah, yeah. Much like the multiverse, we were all over the place.
Yes, absolutely. And I
Oh,
I think I'm actually going to call it because I don't know what the fuck's going on with my throat, but
well,
I sound
it
terrible
knows it.
and I keep
It knows
fucking
we've been.
clearing my throat.
Yeah, it knows what time it is.
Mm.
Just I'll leave you with this thought. In some other sad alternate reality, we never started podcasting. We never actually met. Isn't that sad?
That is
Makes me
very
feel
sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a weird thing in that like and in the in the spirit of saying in the spirit of adult friendship and saying things that you'll remember. Um, this has been the one. Um, I think the one friendship I've had where it's like it's kind of like just still very playful and willing to just go wherever in terms of like thought experiments and stuff. Like because like we said, I think at the beginning of doing the podcast is like the idea of just like playing around with random ass thoughts that you have in your head that most people would never vocalize because they're just weird or nonsensical or don't make sense. Like there's so much that we do on a daily basis that's just kind of like for ourselves. Just like, random
Yeah.
ass like rabbit holes that you go down in your head of like what ifs, like just these things that are never vocalized. That's just part of like living in your own brain. And like
Yeah.
this has been just all of these random ass things that go through your head at any given moment. Let's like focus on one of those and just like dissect it and see what comes out of it. And like that's not something that people get to do like very often. And
Right.
it's just kind of been like there's been a lot of fun because it's like you never like worrying. I mean, you were talking about how like you worry about like being judged. Like we would never have these conversations if like either of us judged each other based on the random shit that would pop into our head.
Right.
So
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I haven't thought of it that way, but yeah, that's it. It's like giving voice to just like the random stuff that
and it's
rattles
like
around in everybody.
yeah, I mean,
I think
it's
you nailed
like
it.
I think that I, you know, you were like when we first started doing this, you had kind of expressed like the early on the interest in like parallel universes and quantum dimensions and all that kind of stuff. And I've never, I think, fully understood what all of that meant. And I always kind of thought that it was, I guess, quantum was more of a reference to like a theoretical thing than
Hmm.
having an actual basis in reality. And I think
Hmm.
that's the that's the Lego that I was missing that clicked. I'm like, oh, now I understand
Mm,
what
mm,
that is and
yeah,
kind of how that works.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
always
yeah.
kind of
I see.
assumed that it was more just like, fringe science, for lack of a better word, that didn't have a necessary like basis in some sort of reality.
Right, I see. Yeah, like it's not nothing that you thought maybe it was something that couldn't be applied. It was just kind of a,
Right. Which I
it's
mean
all like
is still
theoretical and
like the idea of researching uh alternate alternate understandings of reality wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to research as is, simply because to assume that we know everything about the world that we live on would be incredibly stupid. So hopefully there's somebody out there that's looking into the possibility that maybe we don't know everything about everything. That would
Mhm.
be a good thing for people to research anyway. But now
Yeah,
understanding that no, there's actually something very real that they're researching. It's just not understood yet. So that was
right,
kind of the
right.
the missing piece there.
That was like the yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it was always as simple as, well, they made bombs with this,
Right.
you know, w- with this knowledge
Mm-hmm.
long time ago.
Yeah.
And there are other things I'm not thinking of, like things we use every day that benefit from this knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was thinking about, just a quick side. I was thinking about the microwave and like accidentally how that like happened.
Right.
Like that was almost like this magical weird. What the hell? It was like a radar thing or something,
Right.
like a radar tower. Um, Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I like I said, I'm not giving all the answers or anything, but at least like it opened that part of it. I didn't even understand that was like a something you were not hooking into.
And I think it was
So
more than anything else. I think it was probably just like maybe an assumption because I had heard, and I was because I had heard the word thrown around, but it was always in references to things that were like kind of fantastic and unrealistic,
yeah,
that I just always kind of assumed, oh, it must just mean that.
right. Because when it breaks the surface and like people are talking about it, it's usually like the crazy,
Right.
you know, yeah,
Like
they're
when it's
talking about.
actually referenced, it's always referenced in things like, Marvel movies or something
It's
as
like a
the
plot
way that
device.
they can do something impossible, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
always like it's always being used to justify this, we suddenly figured out how to do the impossible and this is why. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
cool.
it'll be
Well,
interesting.
I think that'll do it for this week. 'Cause I'm going to go
Yeah,
stop talking and figure out what my
great.
thoughts on my
That's a
stuff.
good plan. I'm gonna go stop talking as well. I'm
Um,
gonna write a little message here.
um, and people, this is definitely, hopefully, I mean, I know that saying it at the end is ridiculous because nobody's going to listen to 3 hours and 40 minutes of us talking twice. But this is definitely one that you should watch on YouTube just so that you can see the awesome episode art be drawn live, which was really cool for me. I've never seen that happen before. Um, and
I was trying not to.
I just realized it
I was
does kind of make a weird dynamic because I can actually see what's happening.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was trying not to think about that too hard.
yeah. And I was trying not to fixate on it because it's
Yeah,
like the thing that kept grabbing my attention. but it was very cool to see how it all comes together. And you should
Cool.
too.
And yeah, and if you watch, you'll be able to see all the like the erasing, the parts I don't like, and then going
Mhm.
back and forth or fixing stuff. That's just how it goes. So I mean, if you
We can
like
condense
seeing all the
this,
cracks,
you know. Oh, you actually have the ability to make it. You can make the little animated videos out of
yes,
this,
you
which is
can
cool as
see, but
well.
it's like it's hard to, sometimes
Right.
I'm just like going over a part over and over while I'm talking, and that makes it weirder too because I'm trying to talk and think at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool.
Very cool.
It was fun. I'm glad you convinced me to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Um,
fun.
heck
All
yeah,
right. Until next time,
awesome.
ladies and gentlemen, thank
Yeah,
you for joining us.
yep. Thanks everybody. Love all y'all, and thanks for watching and listening.
Yep. Adios, everybody.
Share and
Goodbye.
enjoy. Bye bye.
Share and enjoy.